The day is May 20th, 2008.
Hey man, what's up?
Hey, not much, man. Just getting used to my new phone here. About to go watch a movie, so I'm doing pretty good.
Oh yeah, man, what kind of phone you got? And what movie fixing to go see?
Oh, well, Scotty, I got myself a red Motorola Raylo.
Huh?
Oh, wait,
What?
sorry. I meant Motorola Razr. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah. I don't know what that other thing was.
Yeah,
And I'm
what's
fixing
this
to go... Sorry.
It's okay. What's a Raylo?
Oh, no, a Raylo, I have no clue, but this is a Motorola Razr. I just got it, and, I'm about to go watch that new Indiana Jones movie, yeah?
No way, dude! I just left. It was seriously fantastic. Like, it really did do some things differently. But honestly, I really liked it. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, man, no, dude, I can't believe it's been, like almost 20 years since the last movie. I'm just, super pumped to see Indy in action again.
Dude, you have no idea. Like, I really think everyone's gonna love this movie.
Welcome to the Bombadcast.
What is up, my Bombad people? Here we are. We finally made it to this episode. We've been talking about this for months. Seriously, since the inception of this whole entire show. Whoa, who's that? I didn't
Sorry.
I didn't
I'm just gonna hide in the corner over here.
podcast yet. That's not how this works. That's not how the Force
It belongs
works.
in a museum, Scotty. It belongs in a museum.
Okay, it's our friend Indy. He decided to chime in. All right, Indy, I'll see you later. I got to bring my buddy Gerry in. So
All right, I'm gonna go fly a plane.
Oh, don't crash it before your next biggest
I'll
movie
land on a
comes
golf
out.
course.
Okay. Alrighty, we're off to a great start. I am here, and I am ready to discuss something very big. But before I discuss anything in regards to this special movie, I gotta bring in my very special friend, the one, the only Canon Junkie, and I'm talking about my dude, Gerry Capo. What is up, Gerry?
What's up, buddy? Isn't that crazy that Harrison Ford stopped by?
That
for
was
half a
wild.
second? Like,
He sounded really good. He sounded like himself.
He sounds like he's doing great. He's grouchy as ever, but that is why we love him. That's the way we love our sorry, it was Indy, but I guess it was Harrison. Yeah, we'll say Harrison.
Regardless, I think
Yeah.
the character is synonymous with the person and vice versa. But there's one thing.
Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones and Han Solo.
Exactly.
Like, there is they're not characters. It's really himself.
And the president of the United States as well. So we can,
Yeah.
either way you look at it, Harrison Ford's a multifaceted man and very interesting. And he was actually in a movie that most people don't like. And we're going to get to the bottom of this movie. But first, I want to hear an update from my dude, Gerry. Jay, what you got going on in your life?
Man, not much. Okay, first of all, I just if I may comment, I don't know why people don't like Air Force One so much. So I don't. But this is going to be an entire episode on Air Force One, guys.
Yes.
So buckle in. Here we go, and get off my plane. But anyway, no. So sorry, my update. No, man, I've been just like kind of hanging out, We had like a friend come up to visit us. From your great. Actually, he lives an hour away from you in Lafayette.
Oh my gosh! Wait, he came all the way from Lafayette. My gosh!
Well, his family lives in Michigan, and so he went to visit them. Then he stopped by and visited with us. But hey, man, we hung out. We just kind of like chilled around. The proverbial campfire because we don't actually have a fire pit. But we hung out outside and talked and all that. It was a lot of fun.
That's
man.
awesome,
So just
dude.
kind of been having a nice chill weekend. So, but what's up with you, man? You had a big week this last week.
I did. I started school and I told some kids about this podcast, though I have the slightest belief that they'll actually listen to it. But if you're listening and you're one of my students, get back to studying. And my God, just realize how important it is to be in. Why are you wasting your time listening to this? Come on, you need to do your school stuff. You just got a new laptop, for Christ's sake.
Do things that are more good for your life.
Yes, yes. Instead of listening to two grown men talk about no, I'm not. If you're listening, you get a bonus point. That's no joke. Anyway, so I'm feeling like Indiana Jones. By the way, I'm feeling Indiana Jones, and you may wonder why, but this is the reason. I'm back in the classroom, baby. I'm back in the classroom, but y'all, this is kind of a weird episode. I'm gonna be honest with you. We kind of cut all the Star Wars out of this episode, and we're kind of fine with it for this one. No Jar Jar fact, no news, no really. We're just gonna have the discussion we've been talking about for a long time, and I guess we should get right into it. Gerry, what do you think?
Yeah, man. Hey, this is. We've been teasing it again for a long time, but here it is, our first episode of Lucasfilm Adjacent. And I am psyched beyond belief because this is something I've wanted to do for a long time.
Yes.
Even before we started the podcast, it's something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I honestly think it's yours as well, Scott.
It is, and
so
it was either going to be this or Willow.
Get to get into it.
And this is a little bit more gravitas. So we had been posting about this for a while. This past week we have been saying how we were going to talk about this movie, and I'm going to be honest with you, we haven't had this much response for any other episode in regards to before stuff. A lot of our episodes have gotten a lot of plays and stuff after, of course, we've posted them, but even before this episode's come out, we've had nothing but comments and remarks. We even got a message that I got from Alex from Star Wars Explained, and I want to clear up the air real quick. We had no idea he was going to drop a Indiana Jones centric episode this past week.
When we thought we were like, oh, let's do it. We literally talked about it 2 days before, or the day before that.
Exactly. But Alex had always said how he's going to do that and do an Indiana Jones Explained, styled series. But it's just funny. So after he had posted that, I messaged him and we went back and forth for a little bit saying how, I'm like, oh my gosh, the fact that you started this, we had been planning on doing this same Indiana Jones kind of thing. So cheers to you, Alex. I can't wait for the people to hear from you about your feelings on this movie. So stay tuned for that a little bit later. But yeah, Gerry, I guess we should get right into it. I want to know one thing though, Gerry.
What's that, my man?
Are you ready to stare into the eyes of my eyes? To be hypnotized? That was a strange slant rhyme. I don't know why that was. I didn't even mean to do that.
I honestly just wanted to see where you were going with that. I was like, well, I would love to look into your eyes, but I was like, are we going because the skull, the crystal skull is kind of hypnotizing?
That's what I was trying to get with.
Like that.
Yeah, are you ready to stare into my eyes to start this conversation?
Heck yeah, man, let's do it.
Let's gaze into each other's eyes right now. Let's do it.
Guys, this is the defense of the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Are you ready?
Here we... Alrighty. Leaving it in. I have one question for you, Gerry, before we get any of this.
What is that?
The year is 2008.
What is that?
The date is May 20th. What age were you, and what was your mindset going into this movie?
Well, I believe I was, hold on, me no do math good. 2008. My gosh, that was more than 10 years ago.
Isn't that insane?
That was more than 10 years ago. I had to be around 22 or around that, 21, something like that. Gosh, that's so long ago.
Isn't that strange?
It almost feels... It feels so wrong to say, too, because it just doesn't... I can't believe that this happened that long ago.
Exactly, because it doesn't look like it, and we'll get into that later. It does not, in any slight... at all, to me, look like it came out almost 10 years ago. Because a lot of the CGI from 08, 07, or 09 almost looks a little dated, but this, to me, There's like maybe 3 or 4 things that look a little silly now, but other than that, it's incredible how well this movie looks. But anyway, so you're 20, 22, 21, whatever age you were.
Yeah.
When you went to this theater, what was your expectations? Like, you know.
Well, honestly, at the time when this came out, I was working at the local movie theater in my hometown.
No way.
And so I got to like basically walk into this thing whenever I wanted and just kind of like watch little parts and stuff. Maybe that's why I fell so in love with it, because I didn't just, it wasn't just like a one and done, like maybe, you know. And honestly, I wasn't disappointed the first time I saw it.
Yeah.
It was, for me, it was so awesome to go to a theater.
Yeah.
I'd never seen an Indiana Jones in the theater. Actually, that
true.
summer before it came out, or maybe a couple years before that, the movie theater I was working at, they would do like showings of older films in like late night showings, like midnight showings, kind of when that was still a thing, of just older stuff. And they actually showed Raiders, a print of Raiders.
Awesome.
So that was the first time I was like, oh man, I haven't seen Indy on the big screen ever. You know, I'd only ever watched it on VHS or DVD, and so it was such an exciting thing. Now here it is, a brand new Indiana Jones film, and we get to go and watch it in the theater and just take it all in. It was beautiful, Scotty. It was beautiful. But you know what? So 2008, man, how old were you? And don't make me feel too bad.
I won't. No, I won't.
But how did it hit you?
It's interesting. It was like one of the last days of 6th grade for me, and this is the weirdest thing ever. Are you ready for this? It's such a weird
my back.
tie-in. Oh, I know.
Sorry.
Your back must really hurt. Your poor Ewok eyes. So this is.
I feel like the bad guy from. Pardon me for not remembering the name of the bad guy from Last Crusade. Like slowly turning into a corpse in dust.
Oh, the guy that's played by Moff Gerard. That guy.
Yeah, Gerard.
Yeah,
Gerard. I forget his name. In that
so
movie,
do I.
I feel like I'm crumbling to dust at this very moment.
Well, so, okay, I was in the 6th grade, and it was the last day of 6th grade, May 20th, and I'll never forget this. This is actually a very strange kind of tie-in to someone else we had in the show. It was Troy, my cousin, Elderpug 27's graduation day from high school, which is even funny.
Way.
Yeah, so how it worked was I finished, of course, 6th grade. Then we went to the graduation, and then that evening I went and saw this movie with my friend at the time, Lexi Pinero. And Lexi, if for some reason you're listening to this, I might actually send this to you. I want to know if you remember that. And at the same exact time, the video game Wii Fit had just come out at the same exact time, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think so.
I remember we went and did all this all day, and then we set up the Wii Fit in the evening and played it till about 2 or 3 in the morning.
Holy cow!
It's such a sign of the times.
That was that, yeah,
Indiana
man.
Jones and it was interesting. The Wii was so popular back then. Anyway.
This is now a Wii podcast. No.
Yes, we're gonna talk about nothing but Nintendo franchise-based systems. Yeah, no, it's weird. I remember seeing it at the same exact feeling, too. My first indie movie in theaters, and I had to watch all the other ones with my dad leading up to it. So, like, it's odd. It's like there's so much going against it. And I was in the 6th grade, so I really didn't. I mean, in the 6th grade, I've never left a movie any age below, like, 14 and been like, man, that sucked. Because you're a kid still, you know?
Right.
You don't think of movies as objectively. You think, oh, man, that was hilarious. That, you know, like Over the Hedge. That's so funny that raccoon and this fox, or whatever the plot was of that movie. But, like, you don't think about it from that point of view. You don't think about it as a whole movie. You think about the scenes in it, and you talk about the scenes with your family after, or your friends after. So I saw it, and I was like, this is such a great movie. What? This is amazing. I can't believe I just saw it. We've got aliens. We've got all kinds of things in here. So, yeah, I don't know. As a kid, it was incredible, and it was fun to talk about it with my friends after, how much we all enjoyed it. But it's so funny. Just like the prequels, I had no idea people didn't like those movies at all until I probably got to high school or college, and that's when I found out people didn't like these movies. And it was probably the South Park episode that, like, you know, I don't even want to say it, but George Lucas, you know, blanked my childhood. Yeah.
Which like, seems to be a rallying cry these days, except for it's Ryan Johnson.
It's so strange. Yeah, it's so weird.
Just take out the
it's-
sticker of George Lucas and put whatever name of the person you're mad at because you didn't like that movie.
Exactly. It could literally be Michael Bay. It could be.
Well, Michael Bay really did that. No, I'm just kidding. No.
No,
Michael
but
Bay blew up our childhood. No, I'm just
and that's going to be the bulk of discussion here. Is you see these things, and just like the phone call we happen to have an archive of from whenever I was in the 6th grade, and Gerry was 22-year-old
really
man.
weired that you were
We still
calling me like, "Hey, 22-year-old man,"
and I recorded it.
Yeah, it was kind of
Yeah, it was strange.
File
and
footage, file audio, guys.
Yes, you need to because of things like this. But anyway, I guess I want to hear your opinion on this before I'm pretty long-winded now. I've talked for like 4 minutes straight. But why do you think, and not just for you, but like, why do you think people were so disappointed? Like, really?
Well, and now this was like, I experienced this in real time because, again, I was like in my early 20s. And I was friends with, I had just kind of like gotten, I'd been with these people for a few years now. We'd watched all these movies, and I was starting to get a more critical eye on film because honestly, I, just kind of was like, everything's great. But when you're around it more and you're around other opinions and you can have discussions with other people who love film, you tend to start to sharpen your eye a little bit and look at things a little more constructively. And I was kind of, I don't know, with indie, I felt like I knew what indie was. And I think we all feel like we know what indie was. But then, we got done watching it, and I think most of the people that I talked to enjoyed it. But my friends I hung out with the most, who were they were projectionists and stuff, so they got to, like, they put the movies together, these are like the film nerds of all film nerds. And we talked Star Wars and superheroes and all kinds of stuff, and we loved all of this. All of this stuff was our bread and butter. And they just were like, "Oh no, that sucked. I can't believe they shouldn't have done Aliens." And I had actually, what's funny is one of those guys I had just introduced to Indiana Jones. I forgot about this. They had never really watched. There are people out there who have never watched the Indiana Jones films growing up. It's just some people we all have different holes in our game. But I've got a few that I'm embarrassed to tell in front of some people because I don't want them to tell me how much of a soulless pig I am. But anyway,
Ewok.
Yeah, soulless Ewok. We have dead eyes. We're unblinking. But no, dude, like, it was funny because I remember the biggest complaint was it should have been a biblical MacGuffin. It should have been something more like, I literally, I think that friend that I had introduced to it, he like loved the Indiana Jones movies. But he said, I think Indiana Jones, and I kind of agree a little bit. To a point, I agree that Indiana Jones works the best when he's going for biblical artifacts. But what I think is the cool thing, and that's, again, okay, well, before I get into that, to answer your question, I think one of the biggest things people didn't really care for, it was kind of jarring that the MacGuffin of this movie ended up being, just to be frank, an alien skull.
Yeah.
Which it kind of and kind of wasn't. I know people kind of get like, on like the back and forth and why is the, I don't know, what is an interdimensional being and all that kind of stuff.
And we'll get into that.
We'll get into some of that, but I think that really just like soured people's opinions. They were like, no, it's got to be magic stuff, and that is it. And to me, if I may, Scott, just to kind of kick this off,
please.
To me, Indiana Jones has always been kind of based on the paranormal or supernatural / paranormal side of things that are kind of on the periphery of archaeology and things like that. The kind of legends you hear in archaeology and the mysteries that go along with that. And that is something that is a big mystery and unexplained kind of thing, is kind of these different artifacts and things that we found that suggest not necessarily magical beings, but beings that are not of this
that
earth,
have aided in our human history.
not of this
Best way to say
earth,
it.
or and again,
Yes.
I not to say that we believe any of that, but that is a very notable and big part of these legends of archaeology and things like that. You've got the legends of the curses and the cursed artifacts and the biblical artifacts and things like that, but then you also have this side of the coin, which is the aliens / interdimensional beings, some beings that are not of our earth or plane, coming in
Yes.
and kind of, like you said, interfering. So
Well, and one thing I want to clear up before we get into the discussion, Gerry and I have always discussed since like I want to say the end of May, very soon after we I guess our friendship formed its celebration. But I have a fascination with the idea of UFOs and aliens, not to the point where I'm like that's my belief system, and I'm not going to chastise anyone that doesn't believe in it. It's just something I've always found interest in, and I know the same with Gerry. We both listen to certain podcasts that discuss these kind of strange phenomenons, and to me now, if you were to really think about it, the year this movie was based in was 1957, I think, around that time.
trying to remember exactly, but I think that's close.
It was the dawn.
1950s.
It was it was the hype during.
It was right after there was a
UFO
huge
things-
flap that happened. Sorry, I'm using UFO terminology now, but that
No, it's okay.
That huge flap of sightings that started from Roswell back in the 40s to
Yep. Yeah.
the basically the atomic age.
Yeah, flying saucers and phrases that were coined then. That's especially the concept of something being atomic and all the atomic weaponry and the fact that we had microwaves. The I guess the global idea, or our national United States ideas of technology started to shift for some weird reason. We just got out of a horrible war, and the mindset of the USA was very positive. All of our politicians at that point were not corrupt. There really wasn't that many issues in regards to this. So a lot of that's really reflected then when you bring in the villain, who's going to be the Russians. The
Which
Cold
is
War was
very
starting
apropos
to brew
at the time. Yeah, the Cold War was like.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And the fact that there has always been speculation the U.S. did cover up, alien research and actual alien, events or UFO-like events, and that the Russians also were involved with us for, probably reasons unknown as well, and except, the fact that they were trying to have nuclear races with us as well. So it's a lot of tension, and this movie really reflects that entire 50s period and mindset of it, And, just getting into it, we can talk about the alien aspect, but you got to kind of take a step back and look at, Indy as a character, too. Indy is an older guy. He is not the young Indiana Jones, and I think that's where a lot of people get upset about this movie, is that he's not the young swashbuckling dude. He's kind of aged, and this, to me, is one of the only movies ever, besides The Force Awakens, that address that these characters have aged.
Yeah.
It's the whole movie addresses that he is an older dude. Oh, you're not just some old guy. You're not just some professor, And he always says part-time teacher,
Right.
He said that twice in the movie. But anyway, Gerry.
Well, and I always heard the complaint. This is one of the things that was going around the movie theater back in the day, was that he's so old yet he's still up there having fistfights and doing all this stuff, and I'm like, the movie would be so boring if he was oh man, my arthritis
old man
is acting up, kid. Can you take this for me?
Exactly.
Indy at its very core, the Indiana Jones films they are serial. They're Saturday morning cartoons come to life, is something I had said to you earlier, and it's kind of
I agree with
that's
that,
kind of
man.
with. I mean, I know we said we're not talking Star Wars, but Star Wars and Indiana Jones were both based on those serials that came out in the 30s about space stuff and the 30s and 40s and 50s, is the space serials and then the adventure serials. You have this swashbuckling archaeologist guy who goes on these hunts in, deep in the jungles of these different, places that no one in America had ever been. So, we were scared back in the day because, that's how we are. But, it was kind of like a different time. And these are like portraits of that time, kind of modernized, and put a little panache and a little flash in there to kind of make it exciting
definitely.
and digestible for us these days. And I don't know. There's so much about these to love. You can't look at these you can't go into these expecting serious dramas. but what's
Not at all.
what's funny about that is that the indie films and Star Wars as well, both Lucasfilm properties, bring up so much emotion and can still have so much weight and gravitas, as you said earlier, because the ideas in the films are so deep, but it's kind of draped in this wacky, crazy, fun stuff that makes it, again, fun and digestible for all of us to enjoy and have fun.
Well, there's one thing, too, that we discussed earlier before we started recording, how there's like a repetitive theme, too, in all indie movies. They've always got the gross out scene. The villains always end up having a gruesome death, and it's always by... It's not Indiana Jones except for this one scene where he actually does kill the guy with the blow dart, but it's not because Indy's trying to kill them. It's just because they happen to...
Well, it's like a him or them or
things.
Him kind of a situation.
Exactly.
And he was actually
And-
protecting... He didn't know it was his son at the time. Spoilers. If you're listening to this podcast, though, just stop, go watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and then come back.
Go pull out your old DVD player.
Go find some. It's on Netflix. Just watch it.
Oh, yeah, by the way, I wanted to tell the fans, too, if you haven't watched this movie, please give it a rewatch. Honestly.
Do it for us.
Do it for us, and we already had someone do it for us, and they told us they watched it because of us, and I think it's awesome. But, like,
hear from them later.
Seriously, it is a much different movie when you've got 10 years under your belt and all the horrible things you've heard about it, and you go back and you rewatch something that everyone hated on, and you rewatch it again, and you're like, there's nothing bad about this. I guess, if you don't mind, Gerry, can I go off the cuff and compare something real quick?
Go for it, man. I say I've got quite a few
Okay,
comparisons myself.
I'm about to make a pretty twisted remark that I might lose some fans.
We all love you. We still love you.
The
guys.
writing of this one movie alone is better than all three of the prequels combined. I'm sorry. I'm being so serious. It is so much better.
Yeah.
So much better. Like, you can
The dialogue
watch the
for
prequels,
sure is way snappier.
just the exchanges and the feeling of it, and like the ways they speak to each other in each scenes, the acting. It's just, I'm sorry, but you can hate this movie for its what some would consider lackluster plot points,
campiness,
but
maybe.
my God, yeah, the acting is phenomenal in this movie. The shot for shot. I mean, I will say this too. I wanted to bring this up later, but to me, this is the most Steven Spielberg movie ever. With like all the push-in shots and all the like swipe shots. It's like, it's actually unbelievable how like flowing this movie is in a good way.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a very well-crafted movie. But to me, it's just the dialogue sells me. I mean, David, I think it's David Coop. I believe it's the guy who wrote all the other indie movies. They got him back for this movie, and he wrote for this one as well with George Lucas. And heck, even George Lucas wrote this one, okay? It's like, people forget. And he is an incredible storyteller.
Yes.
The story is by George Lucas, and he wrote it with this other guy.
He just needs a little
And,
help
like,
with the dialogue sometimes. And we're not saying that we don't like the prequels, so please come back.
No, I love the prequels.
We love them, but I agree with you that that's not a connection that I actually made, but I agree with you 100%. It's so much better.
I had to say
No,
it because
don't be sorry.
people will dog on this movie for some strange reason, and they go and praise about how amazing the prequels are when the prequels are great, and I love the stories told in the prequels, but you can't. I mean, the dialogue.
You can't deny
is just,
that the dialogue is at least better in this one.
Exactly, and they're all written by the same dude. I don't know. It's just a point I wanted to bring up. But anyway, Gerry, what's something you wanted to compare?
Well, one thing I did, this is how I started my Indiana Jones week, is I didn't start our week of preparing to defend the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull by watching Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I actually started by watching Temple of Doom. And I think a lot of you who are listening, and in fact, I saw some people, and we've, we might even hear from someone that they kind of compare it to Temple of Doom as well. I wanted to have both of them fresh in my mind because I feel like they are spiritual cousins, like they are sister movies. They really are. I know they're in the same franchise, but you've got Raiders and Last Crusade on one level. This is one side of the spectrum of what indie can be, and then over here, in this more like fun section, or well, not fun. And this over here is kind of the crazy, wacky, fun section where we have Temple of Doom and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I've heard people like dogging us. First of all, I actually heard someone kind of try to make an argument against the point I'm about to make, but let me tell you. To me, the part where Indy survives the nuclear blast by getting in the lead-lined fridge is no different than him jumping out of an airplane in a rubber raft onto a mountain.
On a rubber raft.
With two other people. Me? But someone said, well, yeah, but that's a nuclear bomb. I was like, but look, it was a lead-lined refrigerator. The man has survived so many things that should have killed him.
Exactly.
And he's not really a 60-year-old in the movie. He's an Indiana Jones 60-year-old. There's so much. There's no physics involved here. It's just all fun.
It's a great point to bring up. This movie for a viewer and obviously for the actor. I mean, this has got to be a fun movie. Harrison Ford. I'm not saying he's a negative guy, but whenever he's asked about Star Wars post in a pre-Disney purchase, he's like, yeah, I'm so glad I'm done with those. That character was pointless. But then now, before that, he had always been interested in reprising this character. He loves this character.
Indy is way more his speed. Like, he loves Indy way more than Han, which feels sacrilege almost, but...
Almost, yeah.
But is also understandable because the man literally is Indiana Jones in real life. We kind of joked at the beginning. The man, action movie style, crashed a B-52 like World War II era, a World War II era plane in a golf course to keep from hitting a neighborhood. He is Indiana Jones in real life. He is Indiana Jones. Oh. It's
true though.
It's so true.
It's
I
true.
feel like he just feels so much. He's more connected to him at all costs.
Okay, and the funny thing, like being a little bit older too. I was what? I must have been 11 when the movie came out, 11 or 12, and now I'm 24, and I'm rewatching it now, and I can see, and I really do understand some of the things people have challenges with. The special effects still look good. There's some special effects that are decent. The movie looks really glossy. It looks super bright and very fun. But I can tell you this much. I never understand about when a whole community backlashes against something. That we've seen it. I might have even been a part of it with certain things like the Power Rangers movie. I was just not wanting to see that, and I watched it recently with my family, and I'm actually like, this is actually not horrible. I don't know why I was so adamant against something like this.
I was gonna say, for someone who grew up with the original Power Rangers, I remember when they came out. I loved that movie. I'm a little sad it didn't keep going, but this is not a Power Rangers podcast. But I just had to say that.
No, but it's a point to be made.
Yeah.
And there's one thing I really want to bring up that I feel like most people, the reason why you don't like this movie, if you're listening to this and you happen to not like it, it's because we all have rose-tinted glasses on, and that's fine. We all look back with nostalgia on anything, and Star Wars especially, Indiana Jones, Star Trek. You can name all these huge franchises, The Godfather. And that's the point that I want to make is, when The Godfather came out, 1970, I believe, or 73 when the first one came out.
Yeah.
Then 75, The Godfather Part 2 came out, right? Between that and the year 1990, there was, I think, 17 years? No. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Godfather 2 came out in 73. I don't remember. But there was like 17 solid years until the next movie came out. And same thing. Everyone hated The Godfather 3. Now, I will say Sofia Coppola's acting is garbage, but my point being is these people have aged, all right? Their characters have aged, their motives have changed, and the feelings of the movie and cinema itself has changed since the late 80s or the early 70s, you know? Like, a lot of people can make this comparison, and I've heard it too. A New Hope is a very slow start. It really does not get into it until they leave Tatooine, you know, as an action movie. So, like, you can make that comparison too if you look back at it. But, like, you have a lot of hype built up when someone announces a new indie movie or a new Godfather movie or The Force Awakens. Remember how much hype was built up? But what The Force Awakens did was smart. They paid tribute and almost, you know, really kind of repeated the same feel as all the original ones did, which is great. But what this movie did, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, did is they took a chance, number one, and number two, they really found a way to pay homage and do a little bit of Easter eggs from the previous movies. You know, Marion Ravenwood. We've got Sean Connery.
How awesome was
the
it?
photo is Sean Connery.
Oh yes, that was fantastic. It was such a great homage to that.
Yeah. And then they had the statue of Professor Marcus.
Yeah,
I really
Brody.
don't remember which one it is. Brody, that's it. And you know, they had all these things, and I want to bring up this too. And I think I discussed this with you, Gerry, but this is truly the first reboot of a huge series of reboots that followed franchise reboots. Like, we had Indy came out, Kingdom of Crystal Skull came out 2008. 2009 was immediately Star Trek, okay, with J.J. Abrams. And then we had all these other things get rebooted. We got Iron Man coming around the same exact time. Marvel was starting their things. People were not ready for cinema like this. I really don't think people were ready to have a reboot that was different. If people were doing reboots, they wanted things that were similar, right? So, with that being said, this movie didn't just reboot it. It, like, refreshed it. And people did not want a refresher. People wanted the same thing they've always gotten. And same with the prequels. Something new that people did not like. So, that's one point I wanted to bring up, is that it was one of the very first franchises to be successfully rebooted. But then, I guess at the same time, it was unsuccessful because they couldn't continue it.
Right. Well, here's the thing, and if I may play devil's advocate a little bit, you know, what you'll hear is, well, we didn't need it. We heard that a ton last year when Solo: A Star Wars Story came out. Well, why do we really need it? Do we really need it? The answer is, do we really need anything? But, you know,
exactly.
I don't need ice cream, but I enjoy it.
No.
And if it's pretty great, I'll take it. But look, and we're not even trying to sit here and tell you that Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is The Godfather.
No.
But it's what I get frustrated with is people saying that, well, and Alex kind of makes a point, you know, the Indiana Jones films. They see, like, I like the 4 Indiana Jones films. Like, oh, you mean 3? What is it? I don't really think it's that bad. Now, again, that's a much better. You don't have to go telling people that all the time. But if you'd rather just pretend like it never happened, that's honestly a more healthy way to go about things than like yelling about it on the internet. But of course, there is just, I don't know, with this film, I just felt like whenever I watched it, all I know is how I felt in the theater, and how I felt in the theater was, oh my gosh, this is Indiana Jones in a modern age. And I mean, it was 20 years later. Of course, the Last Crusade was like what, like 39, took place in 19...
It was 89.
Well, but it took place in...
it took place in the... I don't remember.
It was like 1939, I believe. It was like right before World War II or something.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so we got 20 years of Indy's life we don't see, and then we're coming right back. We can't just like jump right back in. We have to be time appropriate.
No.
So jumping into the 50s after he's already like, how many of you guys who else other than me wants like that like Disney Plus series of young or younger Harrison Ford in between the Indy franchise, the Last Crusade and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull going around with that guy that we know is going to like turn on him, like doing special ops for the CIA and stuff during World War II. How bad does that sound? That sounds like,
I mean,
that is a Disney Plus series we
what?
want right now. And you guys come on, hashtag Indie World War II.
But you made up a really good point, and I've watched a couple episodes, but there was a show called Young Indiana Jones, and it had a huge budget. It was actually, people don't realize this, the Young Indiana Jones series was had the biggest TV show budget of all time, I think back in the 90s. And most people don't realize that's what kind of set the tone for shows like Breaking Bad or shows like The Sopranos, or even Game of Thrones. That show was the first big budgeted TV show, and Lucas did almost everything for it, and Lucasfilm was a huge part of it. I mean, they produced it and put it out. It's just funny that people forget that they had a little bit of, you had a little bit of sprinkled in. If you're a huge indie fan, they had, stuff you could sit on for a little while. They had books and they had all that too, just as Star Wars did. Video games and everything that were canon, apparently, as well. So to have that be brought in too is that, we see this character actually get older and it's the 50s. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off.
No, you're fine.
I'm sorry,
well,
Gerry.
One thing I will say, just to kind of bring it back to, if I may bring it back to Star Wars a little bit,
yes,
that is actually where Lucas and the great Rick McCallum started working together, which is just
you're right.
So awesome. No, but what is it? I don't know. Like, gosh, we would never have that amazing documentary at the beginning without all that.
Oh, that's a
but
great
shout
documentary.
out to Blast Points. They did a great Rick McCallum episode. I think you guys are listening to this one because we're talking about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But if you haven't, go check out their episode on Rick McCallum. But no, you're absolutely right. Like the time period, indie, and this is one of the notes that I took while rewatching Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, is that this is what all indie films are. They're a portrait of the time period in which they take place.
Yes, they really are.
Which one was it? It was Last Crusade, where Indy basically ends up in a big
a
Nazi rally and runs
they're
into
burning books.
and runs into Hitler.
It's amazing.
And doesn't he sign something for him? Like he signs the book.
Yes, Hitler signs the book that leads them to the Holy Grail. Yeah, it's amazing.
Isn't that? And it's so funny that people are like, "Oh, this is I can't believe that they did all this 50s. It just kind of didn't feel like Indiana Jones." I'm like, Indiana Jones has always been a time capsule, man. It's always about what is going on in the time period in which it took place. And again, Harrison Ford wasn't in his 40s. We were a little older, so we couldn't just, it wouldn't have been believable, no matter how much. But he, honestly, Harrison looked pretty good in this movie. I don't remember how good he looked. And again, there was a few years between this and The Force Awakens too. But man, I was like, he looks way better in this.
Yeah, and he really does. I agree.
It was just, I don't know, just like that. I don't know, just a rugged, haggard guy, still looked good, kicking some commie butt, man. That's all he was doing,
Yeah, man.
It was pretty awesome.
Well, look, I want to do a quick run-through of the plot and how the movie kind of feels. And to me, it has one of the... It's definitely a different, intro from all the indie movies. It features a literal hot rod race, and it's so cool because I guess people that really don't know the history between George Lucas and Steven Spielberg was back in the day. George Lucas used to race hot rods, and he wrote the film American Graffiti and directed his first big movie. And that whole opening sequence is a huge homage to the 50s, and they have Hound Dog by Elvis playing, and the shots are beautiful.
They're gorgeous.
I mean, really, there's very few movies that are made, nowadays that focus a lot on the cinematography. I mean, you can say The Last Jedi did really well, but franchise movies that really focus on the cinematography. But that movie, oh my god, the intro to King of the Crystal Skull is gorgeous. And so,
and if I may, just some things that I wrote
Yeah.
down about that to compare it to the other indie films. It is a different opening, but if you look, every indie movie opens kind of the same at from the transition from the Paramount logo.
yes.
It transitions from that mountain to another mountain or to something like in Raiders. It was to another mountain.
Object.
In it was a gong. It was a mountain on a gong, I think. In
Yes.
Temple of Doom, I forget what it was in Last Crusade. I don't know if you can help me with that. I don't remember.
as well. Oh no, I do. They were in. I'm pretty sure they were actually at Arches National Park.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. Because it starts out with that's the whole. It starts out with young
He's
Indy,
young.
River Phoenix.
Yeah.
That's such an awesome sequence as well.
That is awesome.
But this one starts out and it does the same transition to the same shape as the Paramount Mountain, but it turns out to be like a prairie dog mound, which was
mound, yeah.
I thought was clever. I know it's like
Very clever.
it's a total subverting of your expectations, which I know we don't really deal with so well sometimes, but just have fun with these things sometimes, guys. It's just they're fun. They're just fun. But
and I agree with that.
it
dude.
also was the
And-
same
and
font. I love that they used they
Same
went to
font.
the same font as
Yes.
it was Raiders and Last Crusade. They used a different font for Temple of Doom. And
Yes.
I am a I'll just go ahead and say it. I am a stickler. I love continuity. That's why I think I love Star Wars so much, because they all, except for like the two Star Wars story films,
yeah.
they all have the same font and they all begin the same,
All of it.
and they end the same way with the the circle out and the
And that's just how George and Spielberg are as creators.
and
It's awesome.
I eat that crap up, man. I eat it up for breakfast. I love it so much. That's why I'm a canon junkie. So anyway, I'm letting you. Oh, this is a window into my soul. So don't stare too deeply into it, because sometimes when you stare into the void stares back.
Yes, and you'll get hypnotized by Jerry's crystal skull eyes. Ewok crystal skull eyes.
They
Wow, you
do
are a
not
lot, Jerry.
blink. They do not blink.
So yeah, the beginning of this movie, a lot of people praise it, and I don't know where it twists. For me, it never twists, but I wonder where for people that don't enjoy it, where it twists for them, because most of the responses I'll say to this episode, or we put a tweet out there, it's like, oh, tell us everything you enjoy about this movie, and you don't mention the ending. Or no,
it was
the
like,
exact
what's
tweet
your
is,
favorite
what's
part?
your favorite part of the which favorite best answers making the show just be more original than the ending. And of course, I mean, regardless of what we put, people, and I understand it. You can be that way. It's fine. But people put the ending, the credits, and Jerry's response has been incredible. Jerry posted the gif of John Travolta from Pulp Fiction
Like, what?
looking around.
Where do I get my drink? where do I go? Where's your voice
it's
coming from?
amazing.
Where's the intercom? No. You know what was funny was there were two tweets that were like right on top of each other that were the exact same thing.
Yeah.
The credits.
Yeah.
And so I took a screenshot because maybe we'll post. I don't know. I don't want to be mean, but I just thought it was so funny because it was the credits and then the John Travolta gif and then the credits by someone completely different and me doing the John Travolta gif again. So,
Well, and the
that
funniest
was so
part
funny.
is most people that say those things don't listen to the show. They're just doing it to get a rouse out of us, and that's
and
fine. I completely understand
some
that.
people really do
can-
not. They don't care for it. And again, we are not saying
That's
you
okay.
have to like this. You don't have to. But we are giving this. We just it is just to us. This feels like a worthy successor to the indie franchise. It feels like a natural direction
Definitely
for it
is.
to go. And I am I'm skipping to the end, but it also leaves you wanting more. And thankfully,
It
in a
does.
couple of years, if we can protect
will.
Harrison Ford from airplane accidents and crashing spaceship doors, we'll get another one in like 2021. Is it 2021 or 2020? Because if it's
The thing is, I wrote it. I think it's 2021.
Oh, okay.
If I'm not
Because
mistaken.
if it's 2020, I'm about
'Cause
to
there was
have
a rewrite.
like an aneurysm or something because I would blow my mind, man. But anyway,
No, and it's just the intro. You go from this hot rod race to meeting that these people are Russians. It's very Spielberg. It's very starting. You know, it's kind of just an abrupt beginning, kind of like Close Encounters or even all the other indie movies, and even E.T. kind of has just like a nice start. You know,
Yeah. It's very
cool.
Very Spielberg.
It's very Spielberg, and to me, this is just a honest statement. I loved BFG, and I really liked Ready Player One. Those are all good movies, but those movies, to me, do not feel as Spielbergish as this movie. I mean, to me, this is like, it's just so Spielberg. Everything about it, the dialogue, the cuts, all the feeling of it is very Spielberg.
Absolutely.
And with that being said, we go to a place that was very popular at the time. Things that were not, I wouldn't say actually at that time, but are now something that people joke about a lot, is Area 51. And like, they lead to this place, and it's the same exact place where the Ark of the Covenant is, which is really kind of an incredible Easter egg that
I thought it was,
people often forget about.
I thought it was, and it's funny, the reveal doesn't happen until a little bit later. You don't really get where they are until kind of they're opening the doors. And I just, that whole sequence is amazing, but I love the dialogue there too, where Indy's kind of talking about how they can't stop us all. If we Naruto run, we can dodge the bullets. And no wait, I'm sorry, I had Facebook open. I had my Facebook events open. I'm sorry. I'm going back to the show notes. Indy didn't say that. That's the actual Area 51 raid. We're not promoting that. We're not promoting it, but we do follow the page because it's hilarious. Anyway, sorry, I had to.
That was my favorite line when he looks at the camera and says, "This will be funny in 11 years," and then he says the line about it being a Naruto run, and the Russians.
They're like, what is Naruto? Like, this is the 50s, man. This is the 50s. So, but can I say, the beginning of this movie is so awesome. It might be my favorite part of the entire film, and I know we've got a lot of it's a tie for a lot of people with like this. We got a lot of mentions of the warehouse sequence. And we got a lot of. Can you hear my cat purring into the mic because he's on my lap, and so Jack is making his loudest cameo ever. So I hope you guys are enjoying it. There you go, buddy. You're okay.
You are Don Vito Corleone when you're with the cat in your lap.
I like to think more of myself as Claw from Inspector Gadget.
There we go.
Next time, Gadget. Next time. Anyway, I need some water after that. Okay, there we go. There's a little Joseph Scrimshaw action for you there.
Blue milk.
little blue milk. I don't have a glass of scotch or anything. Anyway, so where were we? We were talking about Area 51. Okay.
You were talking about how you it's one of your favorite
just from
openings.
You have the you have like you're talking about the opening with the chase or the race to the thing.
Yeah.
Then you get to the gate and they get out and you know something's up with these guys and the guy bends down to tie his shoes and then you've got, for me it was a classic indie kind of like boom, these guys kind of blasting their guns. It was very stylistic and very Spielberg. That's very Spielbergian too, the way you don't see the guys get shot. You just see these guys, they're talking and then all of a sudden these guys pop out from behind them and just blast them all away. And that is, I love Indiana Jones movies. I love it so much.
Yes.
It's just like so great. So then we pull up to the warehouse. They get the one guy out. And I love that they get Mac out and throw him to the ground. And then before they even get Indy out, there's the circle of guys, the shot from above where all of the like soldiers surround the car. Because like it's friggin' Indiana Jones in the car. Like you gotta watch.
It's awesome.
The whole I'm totally stealing all of this, so I apologize. But dude, how they throw, and someone else put a tweet about this, how awesome it was to see them, like they throw the hat on the ground first, and you see that. Then you see Indy fall to the ground in the background. He walks up, he grabs the hat, and you just kind of see him from behind put on the fedora and the music swells. Ba, 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 ba. It was so epic.
The lighting in this movie, if you go back and rewatch it after listening to this, focus on the lighting for a lot of this movie. It's very interesting. There's a lot of visual storytelling in this
very
movie.
good.
More or less than actual, what
Well,
I mean.
yeah.
There's a lot of visual storytelling, and you can tell from, watching it again.
Random point too from earlier. You were talking about how the special effects hold up. Some people will say that talking about the visuals and the lighting and stuff. We'll get maybe into the jungle chase in a little bit, but I mean, you've got to think. This was more. Indiana Jones has always kind of been a stylistic movie. Even back in the day, it's just true. Now we kind of have this gloss of computers, and so they kind of put that on there. I think that was another thing that kind of took people out of it at some points. But for me, again, it doesn't look to me. It's I know it doesn't. I know they're not really in a jungle, but it looks cool. And so and again, I know they're not in this giant warehouse, but it's still such an awesome sequence. Anyway, back to the warehouse.
So at the warehouse, we learned that the Russians are looking for some sort of hidden away object.
They were looking for remains.
Yes, and they inquire, Indy about it, and Indy's like, oh, okay. And so he asks the people for gunpowder, and he throws the gunpowder in the air, and the gunpowder floats, which to me, this is where, even at my age right now, I kind of get this magical tingly feeling in my heart. I'm like, oh, how cool is that? That's just a really clever way
so
to,
cool. That he was
to do, instead of drawing an arrow on a map, it's much more like, we'll just throw this in the air. It's just kind of magical, and it flies that way, And it makes sense that if let's say this carcass had a strong magnetic, field, that this would be a way to look for it. And they follow it the whole way through, and you get introduced to the main villain, who, by the way, this is kind of a strange remark I'm going to make, but a strong female villain, and they never address her sexuality at all, or her difference of gender at all, which is incredible.
Yeah, it was.
At no point did they be like, oh, you're just a silly Russian woman, or they say anything about her being feminine or being a woman.
No, she's a legitimate.
It's
she's
awesome.
a legitimate threat too. And may I say that she also bears a striking resemblance to one Governor Price from Rebels. See our animation episode if you guys want to talk more about that.
Good point.
And she was the inspiration. They said Kate.
Oh, really?
Kate Blanchett. I believe I'm correct. You guys correct us in the comments and on Twitter. Let us know if we're wrong. But I think that Dave and them have said. They were like, man, we just really love the look of that character, and it is a great look, and it's uncanny. You put them up side by side, it's like, come on.
I didn't even think about it. That's a really good point.
So there you go,
wow.
There you go, guys. I connected it to Star Wars. You're welcome. Job done.
You're welcome,
Also,
guys.
The fart joke from the Phantom Menace is funny. I didn't mention it the last couple episodes, so... I guess it's still a thing. If you guys want me to stop, just tweet at me, and maybe I'll decide if I want to or not. So.
I won't. But here's the deal. You get to this part of the movie, and you get introduced to this character, and she's a pretty awesome character. And I didn't know if you knew this behind the scenes little tidbit. Those actors that Spielberg hired were actually Russian actors.
That's so cool, though.
They are from a part of Russia to where they all kind of look like that. They all have extremely strong jawlines, very, heavy brows, that is the genetics of whatever area they come from. So they all look and actually do have actual Russian accents. Kate Blanchett is the only person a part of that, I guess, side of enemies that is not really Russian. So little known fact there. But yeah, to go back.
I actually didn't know that, by the way. Sorry. That was a late response, but I actually didn't know that.
No, it's all good.
So yeah, I learned something.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad
you.
The
more you know.
The more. So they end up finding this carcass, and of course, this huge scene ensues where Indy gets his whip, and he's doing classic Indiana Jones. And apparently, another tidbit I learned is that whip was supposed to be CGI, but Harrison refused to do a CGI whip. He said, I will use the whip in this movie like I have for all the other movies. That's awesome. So
you gotta love
that's
awesome. Love Harrison, man. I mean, that dude wants to do it as authentic as possible, and he just the kind of dude he is, man.
and I don't think the carcass thing is really addressed. Like they really don't open it. It's kind of one of those classic Spielbergs where they really don't reveal it just yet until later. And one thing that I thought was very interesting was the MacGuffin of this movie is not really revealed until later too. It's not the central plot. The plot of the movie, is like, oh, we're trying to find this one thing. Then they find it. Every other indie movie has been, this is the object of interest. How do we find it? All the other ones have been like, oh, we need to find, this one in particular, we need to find this guy who knows about this object,
Right.
It's kind of interesting because the MacGuffin actually is the dude who's gone, who's disappeared.
Oxley.
And then it leads to finding this actual object. And I saw a lot of arguments on Twitter of people commenting like the plot was pointless. This plot didn't need to happen, And I understand your feelings towards that, but he was helping this dude find a mutual friend. No, how would you say it? Someone they're both friends with, essentially.
Yeah.
I guess mutual friend is the best way to say
that's
it.
the best way. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess I get a little, and I understand if it's not interesting to you, but to me, the plot it makes sense. You've got this like. First of all, can we just go back to how cool it is that Indiana Jones, like they just kind of snuck it in there that he was involved with the Roswell crash?
Yes, that was
so cool because they always are doing that in these films. They're tying Indy to these big points in human history,
actual events,
and there's this guy who's like, he's big on anthropology. He's an archaeologist. Like Indy is like he's an expert in these fields, and they're like, hey, come check this out and tell us what you think. And they don't give, and then you find out later he didn't get a lot of information. They went in like a blacked out like van or whatever, and
he couldn't talk to anybody.
Yeah, gosh, it was. They basically like mixed a little bit of X-Files in there with Indy or Project Blue Book or something, and I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm more into this kind of stuff, but I was all here for it, man. It's just how cool was it that they did that though? That's just such a cool little fact.
Well, funny enough you say that. The rest of this movie ends up playing out as Indy ends up trying to run from this dude, and his buddy that he's known this entire time ends up turning on him, right? So it's back to Indy being just Indiana Jones, and he finds some way out of there, and he falls into this pit, and then he ends up getting this rocket scooter, and launches himself out of there. And of course, this is the weird part, is there's like kind of a parallel shot from A New Hope in this scene, where instead of Luke and Obi-Wan and the droids looking off and at the distance of a city, it's actually Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones looking off at what appears to be a neighborhood or something in the middle of this desert. So,
Newtown.
Of course, he walks to it, and he walks in, and he opens this back door. He's like, hey, anyone in here? And he walks up, and he sees that they're mannequins, and he's like, what's going on? And he goes out the front door, and I think that's when they start doing 1 minute till, test or whatever.
Test, yeah.
He's like, or 15 seconds or something crazy, and the Russians end up speeding out of there, and this is where, to me, this is one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, because I've always enjoyed that atomic aesthetic, in that late 50s, early 60s, like, this is our future, this is a very futuristic moment for I guess, the USA.
It felt very Fallout too, by the way. Like this, the whole thing.
It did, and I love
that aesthetic too. It's so good.
And for them to kind of like recreate all these homes, and it's crazy that the U.S. really did do tests like this
on American soil
to see how on American soil. People forget this, and like that is actual fact. There was nuclear war tests in the Nevada desert, in Utah, in places that are kind of barren. And in particular, this is a really clever way to kind of write that in. And they had Indy, they had Indy get stuck in these little made-up towns they did, and here's the test. And there's one part I love about this. It's just the power of sound. And, they go, one, and he goes to shut the door, and I'm pretty sure it's like a can that gets caught in the door.
Yeah, there's like a can of like mayonnaise or something.
And then he had to kicks out and he shuts the door, and then you don't even see I think you just see like the white light out the window, and then they show the town being blown up. And apparently, from what I've read, that was actually a practical effect.
Oh, really?
That whole little town they built. Yeah, there was a miniature. It was a miniature.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
That whole town they built. Mm-hmm. And they blew up an actual miniature like that, kind of like they did for Terminator 2.
Well, also with we were in the visual effects of Solo thing. You know, they actually did a part of that mountain blowing up with coaxium was a practical effect too.
Yes.
It was part miniature,
So cool.
part like actual explosive, and a tiny little detonation. Oh, so cool!
So
it's
awesome.
It's amazing what they can do with practical effects that we still do not. It's seamless. We don't know.
You don't even realize it. And of course, people had some gripe with this scene, but I think it's a very clever way. I don't know if you've ever been around an old refrigerator like that. What's the brand name, Gerry? You remembered it actually earlier.
I don't know, but it's not a brand name. It's a lead lined.
The style.
It was because back in the day, you know, everything had lead in it because you know, it's like give this old block of lead to Junior, let him suck on it and play with it for a little while. I'm sure it'll be fine. Builds character. Builds character. But anyway, who cares about lead poisoning? No, you know, we've got like, and for one thing, Superman can't see through lead, so lead is like, you know, it's legit stuff. But that's
awesome.
that's just an aside. But no, you know, just that they had that little, and that was such a brilliant little thing. It's like they did like a little close up of the label right before he closes the door. It's like right as he closes it. It's like a blink and you miss a thing.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's like how it explains why he's able to at least survive the radiation. Of course,
Yes.
then the refrigerator gets thrown past the Russians, who then die horribly.
Yes.
But and I know it bounces around, and like it's like, of course he would be dead if they really like shot, if you like were in like a basically metal box of death and propelled.
The heat would kill you.
The
and
heat and all
being
that.
flown across the, you know, a mile in the air. Yeah, no, I completely understand that. But then again, it is a movie.
And it's not just a movie. It's an Indiana Jones movie, and the man jumped out of a chicken plane with two other people in a rubber raft and survived. So I call your bluff. I call it.
But so with that being said, the next scene leads to him, you know, being like wiped down in a U.S. facility, and he's being questioned about his friend that ended up being a double agent, and you know it then leads to the next part where he goes back to his college and he tries teaching, and he gets stopped because the FBI went to go raid his office, and he gets fired from his college essentially. So, and then it does end up leading into the fact that he meets this young man named Mutt, who's looking for a mutual connection, I guess you can say they have, who happens to be Professor Oxley.
Well, yeah. It's, what
Professor
happens is
Oxley,
his mom tells him, "Hey, go find this guy, and he can help you.
Go find him.
He can help you find Oxley." And ultimately, as we find out, spoilers, the mom as well. Can I just say, Scott?
Yeah.
I don't care what you say, Shia LaBeouf is excellent in this film.
I
don't know why so many
he's
people,
overall a pretty great actor.
Well, he's a solid actor. He's so solid, and I don't know. I have heard so many people say that he annoys them in this film in particular. I don't know why. Seriously,
I don't see
if he
it.
did to you, please give me some, like, you know, let me know some points of why, what didn't really work for you. But to me, I thought he did just as good as he did in anything else. I mean, you know, I liked him in the first Transformers, but I can understand someone being more annoyed with him in that movie than this film.
Of course. The character's much more annoying in that, and that's the point of that movie.
But he felt like a snapshot.
Kind of an annoying character.
He was a greaser from the 50s. And
yes, he was kind of a punk in the 50s, and that was a thing.
It was I thought it was brilliantly acted, personally.
It was. And it's not too on the nose either. It's not like, hey man, what's up? What's jiving?
Well, it is
cool cat.
It isn't
It's not
because
like that.
he'll throw out catchphrases every now and then, like, you know, I love at the end where he's like, you know, what are you waiting for, Daddy-O? Like whenever after he finds out
Yeah,
Indy's
exactly.
his dad and stuff, and
Exactly.
Okay.
But at the same time, that's not completely ridiculous, you know?
It's like
just
enough.
kinda on the
It's a
nose.
nod and a wink to the camera, which Indiana Jones films do all of the time.
Exactly.
It's in their
And
DNA.
There's one part that I saw actually in one of the mentions we had that dealt with the fact that I guess Mutt ends up putting his comb in the waitress's drink and he brushes his hair with it. it's just such a funny character moment, and that little dining scene where they're talking is a really good scene because, you know, it kind of shows how Indiana Jones has grown up too, looking at this younger guy, you know, not knowing it's his son and just having a good conversation with him.
Yeah.
You know, like a mentor kind of would. And they talk about their friend, and this leads to a ballroom brawl, but not really because the KGB are there spying on Indy.
Right. It's kind of, they use it as a
So-
distraction. Yeah, someone said that line is funny. He's like, "Hey, punch college education over here in the face," or something like that. But can I
Yeah.
just say too, this diner brawl is a window into what Spielberg's West Side Story is going to be too. By the way, because that's what
Exactly.
Spielberg
Good
is working.
point.
That's what Spielberg's working on right now is West Side Story. That's
forget about
that is
that.
exactly right. You can see right there. He's like, let's do this little sequence that's kind of like a 50s, like, you know, the greasers versus the jocks and stuff. And it's like,
Great. That's so true.
it's such a window
Dang, Gerry.
into what this is going to be. So if you're interested in what that's going to look like, hey, watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, man. There's a little something for everybody.
I've actually never seen West Side Story, but I heard it's great. I heard it's like Romeo and Juliet, but 50s.
I'm excited to see
yeah.
his version of it for sure. So
Oh, it's gonna be awesome. Great point. Okay, well, anyway, yeah. So they get in this ballroom fight, and I want to give kind of a shout out to some of the people that work at Lucasfilm. I asked for the response, or I guess the Bombadcast did, and we've got actually some pretty incredible feedback from, you know, the people that work at Lucasfilm, and they said, I asked on there and I tagged them in and I said, "What's your favorite scene from, you know, whatever, in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?" And we got Matt Martin, Pablo Hidalgo, even Adam Lance Garcia commented, Phil Sozak also commented. They all said their favorite part is the diner fight and the college chase. And Pablo in particular says there's the part where, you know, Indiana Jones goes through one window, the camera backs out, and Mutt's on the bike, and then Indy goes back throughout the other side of the window and then gets back on the bike. And that that is a really interesting part in cinematography. And that's one thing. Hey, buddy. And that's one thing that hey, Jack. That's one thing I thought was interesting that they even commented on. And another thing that Adam Lance Garcia said was, I honestly love that movie. My dad and I were roughly the same ages as Indy and Mutt were when it came out, and we used to read a lot about the ancient alien theories. We didn't but believe them. So watching this film always feels like watching an adventure with my dad and me. So it's kind of funny to hear all these people that are pretty big in the Star Wars Twitter world talk about this movie too, and it actually gained us a lot of attention as well.
With so much love too, and I'm glad you read Adam's tweet, because, you know, again, he's not a Lucasfilm employee, but he's still, you know, kind of in the entertainment world and stuff, and that was such a heartwarming comment to me. And so, Adam, if you're listening, man, thank you for that. That really was just such a pleasure to read and see. So I'm glad we got to read that one. But man, like, just this movie means something to people, and I think we can kind of, like, you know, it's fun sometimes to kind of poke a little fun there, and I don't want to say you can't ever poke fun at anything at films, because look, I mean, even as Star Wars fans, we got to be able to make fun of the silly things that happen and stuff, you know, like,
of course,
and there's silly things that happen here, but the very DNA of these properties is kind of it's something that actually means something to people, and it's so cool that the connection that he had, where he said, like, his dad and him were like, they were the same ages as the characters on the screen. That's just such a cool thing to be able to, like, look back on. Kind of like you were talking about, we each have, like, you know, movies. What really is an awesome thing about film for me, and I'm going to go off on a tangent a little bit here, if I may, is
no, please.
What's beautiful about movies, and why I feel like you might be the same way, Scott, but I feel like a lot of us who love film, is it reminds us, we can remember the first time we saw these films that speak to us. And we can remember the things that are going around, and it reminds us of our life. It reminds us of our loved ones. It reminds us of good times. And it helps make things a little more bearable. It's not just sitting in front of a screen to us and forgetting your brain for like 2 hours.
You know, and funny enough, when you say that, that's exactly what me and my girlfriend did. We didn't get to watch it all in one sitting, but we sat there and watched it, and I'm telling her, like, people for some reason really don't like this movie, and I don't know why. And she's like, well, I'm really enjoying it so far. I think it's a lot like Pirates of the Caribbean. You kind of have to suspend your disbelief to watch it, but that's okay. That's what movies are made for. And with her comment being it feeling like pirates, I agree. When you watch Pirates of the Caribbean, do you think, well, that's not historically accurate? You know, like, like there are fish people. That is just ridiculous.
Well, yeah, especially the farther you get in there, and I know a lot of people that it's the same thing, and maybe we'll have to do a defense of the Pirates movies, except for the fourth one. The fourth one I will not defend. That one doesn't exist to me, so okay, see, there I am. I'm doing it now. I'm doing it.
Speaking of girlfriend, she just walked in and brought me some popcorn, so shout out to Katie.
Hey, we had
expect this.
Dude, we had a silent cameo from Allison in their last episode, and we have a silent cameo from Katie now. That's fantastic.
Yes, it's perfect.
I love it.
Some good silent cameos there. Speaking of a not so silent cameo, our friend Nick Flemons, he posted about the same exact the chase scene. He said, "The chase through the Marshall College. I always enjoyed this. It's lit beautifully. Reminds me of the motorcycle chase in The Last Crusade. They even do a bit where the son laughs and the father is amused." And this is the next part. A very small little cameo. The Wilhelm scream is particularly funny in this one too. I died laughing when the Wilhelm scream happened to be that. It's like a complete. It's not unapologetic at all.
No.
It's like right in that dude's face. He opens his mouth and the Wilhelm scream comes out.
Isn't it with the guy who gets
laughing.
like hit? Like they're in the library and they kind of like slide.
Oh yeah, that's exactly.
What it is. It's like they hit the guy in the chair or something. Like
it's so
it's
funny.
It's great. Oh,
It's so funny because it's not like every other Wilhelm scream that's like in the background, very faint. It's so like up in front, and I died laughing, and I'm glad someone else noticed that too because I had actually forgotten about that.
It's so good. That motorcycle chase is again, it's pure indie. Pure Indiana Jones, man.
It is.
Like, and the shot that Pablo in particular was talking about, like, is so... That going into the car, fighting his way through the back seat, and then going out the other window onto the motorcycle.
It's so awesome.
Oh, and I'm like, the way his shoes scoot on the ground. I mean, it's like, it's a classic, like, 80s cinema stunt. And it felt like
they pulled it off really well.
It was again.
Yeah, they pulled it off. Really
someone made the point too. I forget who exactly it was, but they're talking about how it's so cool that it's so seamless that they had him and then a stuntman, and like you can't tell the difference. It's one continuous shot.
Not at all, and that's exactly how they did it. And it's just incredible that they even did it. And apparently, from what I've heard too, Harrison Ford did a ton of his stunts for this. Like, a lot of the stunts you see was Harrison Ford doing them. And he was young enough then. I don't know if he could do it now so well. But, this popcorn's good. Sorry. If I'm shooting to the microphone.
Never be sorry for good popcorn. That's all I gotta say.
Well, so, this next scene leads to, I always forget his name, Gerry. What's the older guy that works at the college with, who's the dean of the college?
With Indy? Brody. Marcus Brody.
Yeah, and they have one really good transaction of words where Marcus Brody says, "We seem to have reached the age where life stops."
Sorry, that's a different guy. I don't know that guy's name. Marcus Brody's the guy who passed away, and they have the statue.
Yes.
Sorry.
I don't remember.
But it's the guy
I forget his name.
Who becomes a chair in Harry Potter.
I can't stand you. Oh my God, it's so true.
You're welcome.
It is the same.
You're welcome. He's in a lot of stuff. I
Great
love
point.
him to pieces. I'm blanking on his name, but he is such an excellent British actor. He's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, so this is a very heartfelt and special moment for me. I don't know why. He makes a good point. He says we seem to have reached the age where life stops giving us things and starts taking them away. But it's true. And then Indy looks at the photo of Sean Connery.
It's such a beautiful but heartbreaking moment, and it always that scene is hard for me sometimes because it always kind of reminds you of how short life can be, and just kind of it.
Oh yeah.
And not to get all existential on here, but it's such a beautiful, just kind of reflective moment, and it makes every time I see that scene, it makes me stop and go, oh yeah, that's. I'm not there yet, but oh no, okay, cool.
Well, a good point, being made is that it shows that Indy is aged too, which is I love about this movie. It really does show that. And if I'm not mistaken, I really forget what's the next tie-in to the next scene. I think it's when they decide to go to Peru to look for him.
I believe. Well, it's him getting on the train, and then Mutt finds him and stuff.
Yes.
And then,
yes.
Then they go to Peru. So
and that's when
we kind of
initially
skipped
the
around a
actual
little bit. That's
plot
okay.
starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when plot really starts to thicken.
That's when we're on the adventure. We're we're in it.
Good point. A good point. I had forgotten that. And then they do the classic Indy scene where they show the plane and it's flying across America.
Have the
and it
plane
goes down
map,
to
the map.
South America. I love that.
So
there's
good.
something about I had honestly forgotten about those sequences in the movies when I watched Crystal Skull this week, and I'm like, man, that's such a cool way to show transitioning from one area to the next. It's such a clever way.
I don't really know if they were the first ones to do it, but it's definitely been
probably not.
It's definitely been parodied. That's you know what it is that's an old school technique. I think that was they brought that back from the 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah, I bet. That would make sense.
That is definitely what they used to do back in the day, because they had to show here we're going from here to here in the map. Here's where we are, guys. And
it's just such a nice transition.
Oh, it was beautiful to see, and it has been again redone many times in parody of Indiana Jones since that. But I think it was something they kind of pulled, because that's what they were doing with these films. Again, with Star Wars and this, they were let's pull up the old school stuff and just make it new again and make it exciting for people. So, gosh, love it. I love it so much.
One thing that we have failed to mention already an hour and a half into this, we're going to end up going long, and I'm fine with that, y'all. I hope you're in for the ride.
Buckle up, guys. We're on a buckle up. We're in the duck Jeep boat thing, the Jeep boat, and we're about to drive off the cliff onto the tree.
3 times.
Yes. Three times it drops. We're
3 times.
3 times the length.
That's what I wanted to leave.
No, I'm just kidding. It probably not that long.
I wanted to leave next to. Well, no, yeah, hope maybe not that long. Well, I want to lead into that next part. Is they go to Peru and they go into I believe some sort of what's it called? I should know this. My Catholic school teacher. A convent.
Yeah.
They go to a convent where they were kind of keeping this dude locked up in jail too. I don't know the Catholicism of Peru works, but it's kind of interesting.
I think he was a little kind of off his rocker, and so sometimes they just kind of say, well, let's just kind of keep you over here so you don't hurt anybody or yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, so they go to this jail cell where they see that he's written this same word, return, in all these different languages, and he ends up writing a riddle on the floor that, of course, Indy's like, Ox, leave it to Ox to write a riddle in, a dead language. Yeah. Well, the riddle leads them to this graveyard site, and believe we have a message in from someone. Yeah, Rebel Scum Texan, I want to give you a shout out because you actually just started listening to our show.
Yeah, what's up, man?
He found it she found it I don't know who it was, found it a couple of days ago, and I really appreciate your shout outs. They were saying, 2 episodes in and I'm hooked. This is great.
That was so great to see. That really made my day.
That was really, it did. It made my day too, because I felt like, wow, we have a little bit of a library now that people can go back and reference. Anyway, they said the entire graveyard scene when Indy is diving in and out of cave holes, then it has the amazing exchange between Mutt and Indy. You're a teacher? And he says,
Part-time. That was the best part of the trailer too. Where he's like, "You're a teacher." They used a different take in the trailer. I liked that. I actually liked the take in the trailer better than what made the actual film.
Okay.
It was like, "You're a teacher." And he goes, "Part-time," and then this one he goes, "Part-time," or it's like some weird like. It was like Harrison was kind of tired with the take that they used in the film and stuff. They're like, "Well, he just got done jumping through some holes, so maybe he's tired." But anyway, that's such an awesome exchange.
It is, and it leads into, of course, a very interesting scene in the movie, and you still don't realize that Mutt and Indy are father and son, and they're actually having, and this whole scene, all these scenes of Peru, they're having these wonderful father-son interactions. At one point he's like, or mentor student interaction. He's kind of like at one point they talk about why didn't you finish school? He goes, well, I wanted to work on cars and motorcycles, and he goes, well, do what you love, kid. It's kind of like that's what you would want to hear from like a mentor. Like, you do what you love, like don't get stuck doing something you don't want to do. And of course later it's completely flipped. But
why didn't you make him finish school? I love that line. So
and exactly. There's one part I love that I guess people really forget to mention is Indy is showing him the ways of being a treasure hunter, essentially. Like, at one point, Mutt starts to walk, like, very quickly through this certain area, and Indy, like, holds him back really hard. He goes, never. He says something along the lines like, dude, you need to, watch where you're walking, because, of course, Indy knows booby traps and everything.
That's all he knows. Like, every Indy... That's like a trope of Indiana Jones, is that there are panels in the floor that will shoot darts at your face.
Exactly.
And don't you love it too? How like that whole sequence of them going into the tomb is so classic Indy, because they have like Mutt like comes face to face with, of course, a skeleton, a corpse, and all that, and he like gets freaked out, and then we've got like the scorpion, like the creepy crawly animal crawling out, and like he gets stung by the scorpion. And he's like, oh no, he's freaking out. He's like, how big was all that whole thing? So good, so just.
And it's really good because it leads us to the next, I guess you could say, MacGuffin of the movie, which ends up being the crystal skull they find inside that guy's chest. And I love it enough that Ox has been there and he put it in there. I like that they're tracing the steps of a man who's kind of lost his mind.
Right.
I think that's really special. And at this point, no mention of UFOs or aliens at all. It is just a crystal skull with some magic powers that cause this dude to go crazy.
Although it's you can see the head looks kind of alienish, but yeah, I agree with you.
Yes, it does. But for people, and I think it's so funny that people were shocked by that. I remember being in the 6th grade and realizing that. But then again, I watched all those shows when I was younger that showed and not Ancient Aliens. I don't think it was
that
out
wasn't
by then.
but like
I was interested in things back then like that. The crystal skulls were something that I used to Google when this movie first was announced. I remember looking up what is a crystal skull and getting all this crazy information on it. So I already went to this movie realizing it was going to be about aliens or something of the like, ancient, creature. Regardless, so you finally get the MacGuffin in this movie. That is actually a really cool prop. I love that look. I think it looks so cool. That blue crystal. Ooh, that's awesome looking.
It looks sharp. It is very. It's again. Shout out to the how amazing the lighting is in this film, and just the way they just the cinematography. Of course, in a Lucasfilm production is. Oh, so beautiful. Gorgeous. Beautiful. Chef's kiss, guys. Chef's kiss. It was so...
It's beautifully done. And I'm trying to think... Oh, yeah, the next scene leads to them getting captured by the Russians and brought back to that little camp. Now, of course, this includes some of the two other really important players in this story. If we bring in our old friend, Marion Ravenwood.
Yes, Karen Allen.
An ex-lover of Indy... Karen Allen, incredible. And you know what? That's one thing I will say about this movie that's better than all the other indie movies, that actually brought back one of my favorite female, I guess, one of my favorite, I I almost can say franchise roles, by the way. I mean, besides Carrie
Right.
Fisher as Princess Leia or Ripley, but like
Well, her
actresses
their
back
chemistry,
to play the same role again.
The chemistry between her and Harrison Ford in the first movie was great.
Incredible.
It was so good. And then like she didn't show up for the other two films, and so it to me
Exactly.
again that makes this a worthy successor alone. Just that fact alone that they brought back
Exactly.
Karen Allen, they brought back Marion Ravenwood to be that foil for Indy. That's just seriously, if you get nothing else out of this film, go in it just to see their chemistry back on screen together. So good.
Exactly. And it's funny enough you say that. The Scare of Scuttlebutt podcast, some good friends of ours, they send in the tweet. My favorite part was watching Karen Allen having a blast back in the franchise. We all waited so many years for that. And I agree. I didn't wait that many years, but it was cool for me to make that connection as a kid.
Right.
I was like, wow, it's that lady again. That's awesome.
It was super cool. And she looked good too. Like her and Harrison both
really did.
aged very well, looked very nice. So anyway, that's it. People's looks don't matter. I know. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be, but it just was like, man, so good, so exciting to see them both on screen again, just kind of going back and forth, and they waste no time going to like fisticuffs with each other. It's so awesome.
No, and I love that. It's kind of like you know when you see an old friend you haven't seen in a while. Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, Kate just walked in. It's like seeing an old friend you haven't seen in a while, and they just pick it right back up to where they once were. And then you get the reveal that Mutt is actually their Mutt. I mean, that's their kid, you know? And the character name is already clever, because he's pretty much a Mutt child.
Cool was
He's kind of a bastard
How
son.
cool was it? It's just, that's a cool name, just Mutt Williams. And it's almost like an Indiana Jones kind of thing. Like, it's like, oh, I made up this name.
It really is.
I made up this name to sound cool because, because Indy, his name is Henry Jones Jr. He's a junior, and like Henry Jones Jr. the third. Or the Henry the third, Henry Jr. Anyway, Henry Williams the third, I guess. He's the third Henry, and so it was funny that they both were like, "I got to come up with a cool nickname." Like,
exactly,
so they're so each
just,
other's they belong together.
The apple does not fall far from the tree.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's the next part is you get introduced to Oxley in this scene, and I forget the actor's name. He doesn't do that much acting in American films, and to have him be in this movie is incredible. And it's such a great character, such a goofy character, a character that's also kind of mysterious. Reminds me of that first character we get introduced to in Close Encounters, that guy that's kind of sitting outside the I think it was some sort of bus or something. He's like talking to himself all crazy.
John Hurt. He's I mean, such a prolific actor, though.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in Alien, for one thing. Just in.
Oh wait, never mind. He was.
I was
an
gonna say
alien.
he was. No, you're good. Well, I mean, I don't know. He doesn't do as much today and stuff, but he does. He's a British actor, and so he does a lot more British stuff. He's been in Doctor Who. You will see him pop up. He's one of those faces where it's not like you're like, oh, it's that dude from that thing. He's such a brilliant character actor, and he was just absolutely phenomenal in this film as Harold Oxley.
Especially and I love the part where, of course, they get back into the tent and Indy has to stare into this skull, and like you can kind of see Harrison Ford lose it a bit. And this is funny because people forget that's a trope in all the Indy movies. He kind of gets tempted by this object of interest, I'm pretty sure it happened in Temple of Doom, if I'm not mistaken, right? Doesn't he end up getting his heart almost taken out?
Like
he kind of ends up teetering on the edge of each issue that comes in that comes to. Well, I'm having I don't know what I'm trying to say, but he always ends up living on the edge in regards to what he's interacting with, the MacGuffins of the movie.
Yeah, Indy comes so close to being destroyed by every single thing in every single film. He comes so close to like just losing his life. Molaram they're like hanging on the bridge on the cliff in Temple of Doom, and he like
that's it.
He tries to get his heart. He pulls the whole Kalima, Kalima, and I don't know, cover your heart. Yeah, gosh, Indiana Jones is awesome. I love this franchise.
And it's so funny because it's still paying tribute to those tropes, and I don't understand why people dislike it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But if you have an opinion about this, feel free to reach out. I would love to discuss it with you. I'm not going to shoot down your I almost said negative ideas. I mean, I may, but I'm not going to shoot down what you believe in this movie too, because you might have reasons you don't like this movie. And I had a friend of mine on Facebook tell me why they did not like this movie, and they didn't really explain themselves all that well as to why, and I had to kind of pry it out of them. But anyway, if you don't like this movie and you're listening to this, feel free to reach out to us. Back to the lecture at hand. We are then escaping. Our characters are escaping from this tent that Mutt has decided to catch on fire, like out of nowhere. In typical takes after his dad style, he like burns the whole tent down randomly, and they all just run up the back of it. And our two main, I guess, our veteran characters get their feet stuck in some mud.
It was like a dry sand pit, if I remember. I just watched it today, so I'm fresh. Yeah, it's like they're like it's quicksand. Like he stops. I love that Indy stops and goes, actually, it's a dry sand pit. It's not. And he like goes into like a lesson about.
It's amazing.
Oh, it was so great. I'm like, I love this so much. It's so funny. It's just classic Indy.
It's very classic. And then we of course have the scene where Mutt's like, I need to get some help, and I think someone commented on our feed, but it was like, I love how they mentioned Sears and Roebuck, And it's like, what, you're going to go find a rope? Go find a rope? He's like, what? We're not, there's no Sears and Roebuck or whatever.
Yeah. I always see, that's the part that I was always like, oh, that poor snake. He's like trying to get, because they pull it out, you can tell it's a rubber snake, That's the one part of the movie I think where I'm just kind of like, I roll my eyes a little bit. I'm like, all right, come on. It's like, use a live animal.
It's great. The acting is great, but the fact that it's a silly looking rubber snake is pretty funny.
But I love that he throws it away, and of course it's still alive. It just makes like a, but it's still the rubber snake. It's great. I love it so much.
And then it's like a B movie, and then they end up getting pulled up by it, and at some point in the middle he goes, Oxley, go get us some help, and I'm trying to find the comment that mentions that, because it's so funny.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It's what someone who's out of their mind would say or do. They would go get some help.
It's I know the comment you're talking about, like they love the part where like...
Oh, yeah, it's from Isaiah Stevens.
Yeah.
And he said when Oxley goes and gets help for Indy, which turns out to be the Russians.
That was good.
And it's funny. It's the easiest way for them to get captured again.
Well, and it's funny because like they sit there. He doesn't understand what they're saying. He's like, "Go get help." He's just sitting there like, "Help." Mm-hmm. He's just repeating what he says. And he's go get help. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Oh!" And he finally runs away. And then he comes back and like there, of course, it's like it's the Russians, and they all are like, "Oh no, we're done." And then Oxley just goes, "Help."
It's
very satisfied.
It's very 80s movie.
Oh, he was very like self-satisfied. Like, look, I did it. I did what you wanted me to do.
Help.
So good.
But that's, to me, that's kind of George Lucas-y too. It's kind of just like on the nose, And I don't know. I like that. But anyway, we lead to the next big part of the movie. Is we lead to this huge jungle sequence that, to me, is probably one of my favorite action sequences in almost any indie movie, besides the part where they fly the plane through the tunnel. I love that scene. Great. I love the airplane scene in the Last Crusade. But for this part, this whole moment in the jungle is incredible. And like people will say, it looks very CGI.
It's one of the. It's kind of like the Canto Bite sequence. I feel like of this movie for some people. Besides the aliens.
Yeah, and I can see that. I understand.
I can understand it. It's not the best CG, but it's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. Not in the slightest. And a lot of people, funny enough, the comments on our thread was this is their favorite scene. And the way the acting happens, and the part where I still think it looks incredible, where that giant thing that gets cutting the trees down launches back at everyone.
Yeah.
That looks so good.
I love that part
And the
because
cinematography is
well, it's
sick.
so cool because they're like they take over their. I love the whole setup of that. They're like fighting
Yes.
in the back of that thing, and the Russians like shut the heck up! I can't take it, you know. And
Yes.
like they, what is it like? She says Marion sets up the dialogue and says we almost died or something, or we got captured. And something, and Indy goes, not today, and like he kicks the guy, and then him and Mutt just kick that guy until he's like unconscious. Then they beat the guys.
Yes, it's amazing.
Indy climbs up, he beats the guys up, they take over that Jeep, and then the what you're setting up, the whole the buzzsaw coming back at everyone. Of course, it's because Indy finds a rocket launcher in the back of the thing.
It's so awesome.
He comes up, and I love that they all freak out, like, whoa! He's like, oh, stand back. And they just...
He's like, cover your ears, kid.
He launches the rocket, and it just like, oh, and then it like takes out the top of there. That was such a cool... Gosh, watching that today, it's such a cool, almost seamless thing where like... There's so many near misses in this movie. It's ridiculous.
It's so awesome.
Unabashedly Indiana Jones near miss, where like it just bounces just barely over. They just duck in time, and there's like not even a top of the Jeep left. It's so cool.
That's a really good point. And another thing I wanted to read on here about Marion Ravenwood. This is from someone named Gary Davenport at GareBear_11. He commented under Imperial Entanglements comment. They said, unpopular opinion, a really unpopular opinion, but Crystal Skull did a better job at staying true to how Marion Ravenwood was in Raiders than Last Crusade did with staying true to how Marcus Brody in Sala was. So Marcus especially is practically a different character in The Last Crusade, which I agree with. And like, I'm glad they can have Marion drive the vehicle in this part. This part's incredible. So they've got, she's the driver. I forget, old boy who Indy punches in the face again is such a good scene. He's on the Russian side again. It's just funny that this whole entourage is so different than almost any other Indy movie. And I will say I like that there's an entourage. Of course we have Short Round and that annoying blonde girl in Temple of Doom.
Willie Scott.
Ravenwood. Yeah. Marion Ravenwood and Sala in the first Raiders, and of course Last Crusade you got Jones Sr. and Indiana Jones, Henry Jones, I'm sorry, Jr. And like all these entourages they have, but I will say, to me this is the best entourage in any Indy movie, in regards to character variants and dynamics. You got Oxley who's losing his mind, and Mutt who's kind of the young, naive one, and Indy who's just the old, how would you say, adventurer.
The grizzled, the old grizzled like gunslinger, maybe trope might be a little a step too far, but just kind of the guy who used to be in action, and he gets kind of drawn back in. Or honestly, the way the movie starts, it feels like he just never stopped being like this crazy action hero, which I love.
Exactly. So that's a good point to be made, and the whole fight of them on the two different vehicles and sword fighting, to me, straight up out of a 50s movie, out of a 50s B movie, out of a Saturday morning serial. I love it.
Absolutely.
I think it's so campy. I love how charming it is. It really is so funny. And it's a movie. Suspend your disbelief,
Okay, I know a lot of people have problems with this too, but what about that sword fight between Mutt and Spako? Oh my gosh. How amazing. And I'm looking, let's see, we've got a tweet from Ali Rico here. She said that it's goofy, but I love the sword fight between Mutt and Spalko.
Yeah,
it's brilliant. No, I do too. And again, just rewatching it today. And again, you guys, don't call social services, but I was watching this with my 2-year-old. But her eyes were glued to the screen, and like this is engaging. It is, and my mind worked too. Like this is, it was just so well choreographed, and it's
The visual is fantastic.
It was a cool sequence, and again, this isn't meant to be gritty realism. And I love the whole like how Marion is yelling back like she's coaching Mutt like oh your footing, watch your footing, and he's like this isn't a match. I love that. Oh.
And it's funny because they do mention it that he was a fencer, and he fenced. So it's not like everyone always claims with Rey, out of nowhere this person knows how to fight. No, Rey was on Jakku by herself for 19 years. She had to learn how to fight. Same with the same exact character,
right.
like he learned to fence in college. So I think it's cool they wrote that in and to have it actually play out later. So I just love that. And it goes to the next part, which people also don't like, is that he ends up. I don't know if he falls.
He gets.
I forget exactly how
he
he
gets
trains
caught,
him.
they say, "Hey, look out!"
Oh,
he gets caught in a vine. And draws him up into the trees with the adorable capuchin monkeys.
Yes.
That later turned into. They use
monkeys.
people are like, oh, him and the CG monkeys. There is a real monkey at first. There is a real capuchin,
there is.
and then there's CG from there on out. But I had to say that because there was a practical capuchin on set.
I'm pretty sure it's the same monkey from Pirates. If I'm not mistaken.
It might be.
Pretty sure it's the same exact. It's the same exact one. They look
We'd have
exactly
to check
the same.
I don't know if he's
the same faces.
I don't know if he's on IMDb, but we'll have to check it out. So
he might. I bet he is.
I don't know. Sorry, I don't know that monkey's name. So besides Jack.
Well, so back to the point at hand. This whole sequence happens, and they're on the side of a cliff, and it's just. I think it's a really great Indiana Jones moment, and of course they show that it keeps leading up, and they go off of something, and then they land on to where the ants are.
They kind of crash through some trees before they go off the cliff.
That's it.
And
that's it.
Yeah, so both the vehicles land on anthills, and it's like I forget exactly the name of the ants, but Indy. I'm sorry, we're going to start talking about Toy Story now. Indy says the scientific name of the ants, and then they're like, "What?" And he goes, "Big dang ants!" Like just get out of here, And it's that whole sequence is like, that's another thing. Okay, Indiana Jones is three things. It's wild, over the top action sequences, and Indy kind of bumbling his way into stuff. It's bad guys dying in horrible ways, and it's creepy crawly creatures and a butt ton of them like taking over like the entire ground or floor of a scene and just like posing some kind of threat, or at least trying to gross out the main characters. And this was an actual threat. This scene has all three of the essential indie ingredients, if you ask me.
The gruesomeness of it and the feeling of it, and of course India gets into a fist fight that ends up leading to this guy's ultimate demise, but not on purpose, And he punches him, and you see all these ants eat him, and of course another poor Russian guy gets eaten alive by ants, and it's just funny because you see I forget. Her
I
name,
covered
Kate
my
Blanchett's character.
I covered my 2-year-old's eyes for that part, by the way. So please don't call social services on me. She was immediately afterwards asking for more Indiana Jones, so it's I was a very proud papa.
I bet you. Well, and it's I feel like a little bit older is the age when you can kind of let them sit and watch the whole thing with their eyes open. Like at 8 years old. But anyway. No, you're a great father. I wouldn't worry about that. You're showing your kids Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Come on, dude. That's amazing.
You gotta raise the Padawans right. Like I got my own little mutt up here. My own little girl mutt. So.
Well, there's this next part where Kate Blanchett's character's climbing on top of the thing, and an ant gets up her leg, and then she crushes it with her knees. And for some reason, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I thought to myself, "Was this movie a 3D movie with her at least?" And I forgot about it. No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
it was not.
It wasn't, but it was right after that 3D really became.
That was the boom.
Well, it
was
3D. Like right after that Avatar came out, and that was what started the revolution. But That part,
Yes.
don't you love that it got on the screen? That was like those.
It's so
anytime they
cool. I
squashed
love
those
that.
ants, it was disgusting. Like,
It was awesome. And there were like thick orange juice came out of them.
yeah.
Oh, it was amazing.
Oh, it's like, ooh, gross. That's awesome. I love it.
Well, then this scene leads into the next sequence, which is them, going off the waterfall, going off the edge. And it's so cool to see. What's the guy that Indy is? Who's the triple, like the quadruple agent? This movie. What's his name?
Oh, the
son of a
character's name is Mac.
Mac. Yes, Mac. The whole movie, his intentions. He is a money-hungry dude.
He's out for himself.
Which leads into
he's
the-
the he's the
Yes,
DJ
whole movie.
/ Lando Calrissian of this series.
Yes.
Of this movie.
Yes. And we lead into the next part, which is them then going down the waterfall 3 times. I'm sorry I'm recapping the whole movie. For those who haven't seen it, you'll probably be like, you know what, I'm going to go rewatch this. But for those that have watched it recently, I know you can agree that the plot is actually not horrible, in regards to how they get to the kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
You probably can
which is
play this as a commentary almost by the time we're done.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're at a solid hour and 51 minutes. I think the movie's exactly 2 hours and 3 minutes, so you really could play this as a commentary.
You know what, Scott? That 3 drops, I've always thought would be an awesome like water ride at Disney World or Disneyland. Like, I always
Not a bad
thought,
idea. That's
and man,
true.
if Indie Fever comes back and people are like, because I know after this people were kind of like, a little
They
iffy
were
on
done.
it and stuff, which is why it took so long to get another sequel. But now
Yeah.
that Disney, we own it and all that stuff, man, like, come on, make another indie ride. Let's make the Indiana Jones boat ride,
And the triple drop.
triple drop to Akator, the Akator plunge. Here we go, baby.
Like an actual waterfall based roller coaster.
It would
That'd
be,
sick.
it would be Splash Mountain, but Indiana Jones. I mean, come on, guys. What's not to love about that?
It would be
What's not to
amazing.
love?
But so this next part is where, to me, it becomes more fantasy, more magical again. Is whenever they end up finding this area they're supposed to go to, and you see this skull through the waterfall, and it's so cool. And they go into this little area, and they find this little door, and they open it up, and they end up finding where they're supposed to be. And of course, they're walking through this temple. And there's all kinds of art and architecture on the walls, and it's all these things with elongated heads. And if the moment hasn't come yet, this movie's about aliens. I'm pretty sure the part in the tent too, they show an alien body, right?
Yeah,
Am I
yeah. In the
mistaken?
tent, you see that. Yeah, it's become. I think people were starting to see it, but I think they were kind of wondering how it was going to go. I think they have a problem with kind of
Yeah.
what we're coming to at the end here in the temple with
Yes.
how they were portrayed.
People have a lot of gripe with this
Yeah.
part.
Which
And I respect
I
that.
can understand.
I understand
It gets a little weird. Which, if you've listened to this podcast since the beginning, you know we are definitely into the weird.
We are. And a great part comes up where Indy holds up the skull, or Ox maybe, I don't remember who does it. And
It was
and
Indy,
It's
it was Indy.
You kind of silhouettes. Yeah, it silhouettes the art in the background, and it kind of makes this connection like, oh, wait a minute, And as they're going down this area, all these people have elongated heads, and it's just really cool.
Oh, I thought you were
don't
talking
know.
about.
I
Oh,
love
okay. I
that
thought you were
part.
talking about when they're trying to get into the actual temple. We're not to that part yet. But yeah, they go. I
Oh.
was thinking like the part where they use it. You find out the skull is basically the key.
Oh no,
Okay.
not that part. No, we're still getting there.
Spoilers!
And spoiler for the people who haven't seen this for some odd reason, it came out.
Well,
later
if you're
musical,
this
a little
deep in, maybe
Irish song.
just watch it anyway. But like you basically
take a
basically seen the
pause.
whole movie. If you're listening to this now.
up to this point. And the cool part is Ox is starting to make more sense up until this point. He hasn't come completely back from his mental state, but what he's saying is like story-wise is like, oh, now it's making sense what he means by all this, And I love that. I absolutely love that. So, with that being said, we end up finding our way into this area, and they go through. I believe the next part's when the natives are chasing them,
it's
maybe?
like they the shot is so cool because you see and someone made a comment that this is one of their favorite parts, said it used to scare them as a kid.
Yes.
Where like you see the eyes through the skull. There's like a
Yes.
skull carved into one of the walls, but the eyes are like holes, and you can see someone else's eyes through there. And then I love that shot where they walk. It shows them leaving this like chamber, and the camera stays on the chamber, and then all of a sudden, all these little breakaway pieces of the wall like fall out, and all of these like natives with like their twirling their like slingshots and stuff, getting ready to go.
Yeah,
it was so. That's such a cool scene.
awesome
Such
scene.
I love the stylization of this movie. But like, yeah, then they basically get chased out of that temple onto like that plane into the next temple. The only thing that saves them is that Oxley has the skull.
The skull. Mm-hmm. He takes the skull and they all freak out and they're backing away from it, which I think is so cool. And this, of course, leads to the next temple where they use the skull as the key. And it opens up this realm, this whole area.
You got that treasure room kind of at the beginning, and then like they.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
My favorite part
I love that because
is,
like they're like, this is supposed to be a city of gold, right? That's like the whole
but it's not.
Yeah. It's a different treasure, or they have all these different treasures in that room, but it's different than what they thought.
It's so
it was
awesome.
Great.
And they have to go down those steps, and they have to break the sand things, and all the sand fills up the little area. That's awesome. Which leads into the treasure room, and come to find out it's called the City of Gold. And the translation was the City of, what was it? Wealth or something? The City of power? I don't know.
Gold what we translate as gold is a word that just usually means treasure.
I think it's
it usually means
power.
treasure.
Yeah, or something. Yeah. And the coolest part is the aliens that are the interdimensional beings are saying how knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a cool theme, and it reflects Indiana Jones as a character, and I can go on to that forever. But like, they figure that out. And the coolest part to me is the fact that these aliens or these interdimensional beings are archaeologists themselves. I think that's freaking awesome.
It was a pretty cool mirror. It was just, I don't know, like, real quick, too. You know what the coolest part was that they figured out how to make a level of Super Mario Brothers come to life whenever they're walking down those stairs and they're, like, going into the wall.
You're right.
That was total, like, Super Mario 64, man. Like...
It really was. That's so true.
That's such a nerve-wracking scene. I'm like, go, 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 because I'm like having flashbacks to Nintendo 64 Mario.
And it's good.
Oh, it was so much fun.
It's really
good.
good.
Classic again. We even say this is the catchphrase, classic indie.
It is a classic indie.
But
really
no,
is.
again, to the actual theme of the film, it's such a, and honestly, I didn't really put that together until you just said that they are like these. They're treasure hunters, not treasure hunters, but they are archaeologists in and of themselves. They're interested in this, like how, like helping out or studying like us, studying humans or like different things like that. They're archaeologists. They're inquisitive. They are all about knowledge, and they have obviously more than we do. And so
definitely.
Then, of course, you have... Let me see if I can find that tweet again. Sorry. Go on with you. You go ahead while I'm looking for the tweet.
Oh, no worries, no worries. So the cool part is they end up getting led into this room with all these other crystal skeletons, and one of them is missing a head. And I love this part because we end up getting caught back up with Cate Blanchett's character, and she walks back in. She's just, her eyes, it's such good acting. She just seems like it's everything she's ever studied and fell in love with has led up to this, and it's so good. And then, of course, they are talking about what these things are, and, I love how it's, we end up finding out later it's just a spaceship covered in, Mayan-looking tiles and architecture, and it's so awesome. UFO that's end up covered in that kind of thing. So then we get to the part where she brings the head towards it and it attaches back to the thing, and the body kind of arches back up and kind of like moves its hands for a second, and Oxley starts talking to it in Mayan, which I think is like, this part's where I'm like, this is awesome. This is like Indiana Jones top tier to me. Kind of like you're on the very spiritual kind of this part's kind of creepy. When he's speaking a different language and he's apologizing to him, like we're so sorry, we're glad to have got you back. And I'm pretty sure the alien or interdimensional being says to him, along the lines is like, is there anything you want to know? And she interrupts. She's like, tell me everything. Tell me everything you know.
This is the tweet. It's from I'd Cian or Can. Who says, they say, Spalco's desire to know everything. I think about it more than anything else in that movie. Especially, this is their favorite part. They think about that more than anything else. Especially when I can't keep up with Twitter. And it's funny, that's hilarious they said that. Because they put the gif of her, like, having the knowledge, like, beamed into her eyes, you know?
Yeah. It's awesome.
That's such a crazy... It was such a cool visual for, like, having the knowledge. Like, how you do that visually. Instead of just, like, you know, like, in The Matrix where, like, they plug something into the back of Keanu Reeves' head and he comes out and goes, I know Kung Fu.
It's much more natural, you know? And this is an honest trait that human beings have, is the desire to know things. And imagine if you had the opportunity to talk with something or someone of a different species, and you know you could, and they would probably give you more information than you would want to know. You could
learn the secrets of the universe, but is that knowledge something that we can handle? Is it something? Is it something that would ultimately be your destruction, as it is again? With Spalco here, and again with the bad guys dying in horrible ways. First of all, like they have the portal up above them, the kind of thing that looks like the obelisk up at the top, you know, the kind of 4 pillars that fold out, which is awesome. It was kind of cool that I thought that was cool. It gave me like chills. I'm like, oh, it's cool because it's like showing that the architecture of the society was based on what they had seen from these beings. And, you know, they're like, oh, that's a interdimensional portal and stuff. And Andy's like, we don't want to go that way. Get out. But that you have
and I love how Ox snaps back into it.
He's like, okay, what I had to do was done, and so now I'm back. But it's funny that, like, talking about the bad guys dying in horrible ways, you have those guys, all the soldiers that were with her, as the rest of them finally jump out, they all get sucked up into the portal. So it's like, they may not even be dead, but they definitely went somewhere where you probably don't want to go. So I just everything about that scene, I know it gets wacky and crazy and like, whoa, is this isn't Indiana Jones to some people, but to me, again, one of the notes.
Well, look about how all the other villains died in every other Indie movie.
I'm talking about even.
I mean, it's
gruesome, but I'm talking about just like the backdrop of it being like ending up being a spaceship. I think that kind of throws people off, but.
And I can respect that. It's not what you would expect from an indie movie, but this is where this movie takes chances, and this is where it kind of reflects the generation.
Absolutely.
You know? And I really like this part because as a you know, 6th grader, I mean, I was reading all kinds of books that was like, you know, cryptids and, you know, alien experiences, close encounter stuff. I was very interested in that. So like at that age, I was like, wow, this is just everything I love accumulating into one. And I believe we have let me see, I need to find the tweet, but someone also mentions that they said how much they love it.
Well, I was gonna say, like, you know, one of the notes I wrote down was this is another corner of archaeology and the paranormal that Indy deals with. You know, this is like, I don't know. To me, it was different. It was something different that they hadn't touched yet, and so that's why it felt so maybe wrong to people. It's like, well, we haven't touched this yet, but to me, I'm so glad they did, because it's like, why not touch this? This has everything to do with archaeology and the times that they were in. So
and it being interesting, you know. And we've already, funny enough, I don't mean to cut us off, but we've crossed the 2 hour and 3 minute mark. So if you happen to be watching this and watching Crystal Skull, this is kind of funny. So
are you enjoying the credits? Even though are you enjoying the credits? Because the credits have great music.
They do. And another thing we did not bring up, John Williams' return. What? Are you kidding me? People forget he was a part of this.
John Williams, and what a beautiful score he does, too, for this. It is. John doesn't ever phone it in, though.
Ever disappoint. And people never bring that up. There's one part where Indy's putting the skull to the part that opens up the portal to the UFO, or the flying saucer. that they bring it up to there, and it's this incredible music. It's very suspenseful, and it's very John Williams. And then the part during the wedding at the end with Marion and Indy, the the music is the same theme from the first Raiders, and it's like it's so well done. So for any other reason, if you hate this movie, just go back and listen to the music, pull up the soundtrack. It's great.
It is excellent.
It's so good.
Just do that and think about Indiana Jones. You don't but
exactly,
just take a second watch of this film, because it's I think we've just about covered the whole thing by now. Minus the whole, I love the end sequence with the. By the way, whenever the ship is coming out of the ground,
it's so
and
awesome. It's
everything
incredible.
implodes and all of that. We had a tweet that someone was talking about how they loved that shot and the shot of Indy like seeing the atom bomb.
Oh, I'll read it right here. Yep, it says. Hold on, I just had it. It says, where'd it go? Oh, here he goes. I have two of my favorite moments. When he's watching the nuclear blast and when he's watching the flying saucer take off. The scene where Indy is seeing these monumental, historical, and or supernatural moments that few or no people others see are a part of what makes this franchise great for me. And I agree.
Yes.
It's those kind of moments, especially with the atomic explosion. He's just standing on the hill looking at it, and then vice versa. He's looking down at this UFO, destroying this whole both these temples, and about to take off. But the cool thing is, it doesn't take off. It doesn't just like disappear.
It just kind of all of the debris is floating around it, and it just kind of there's a blue flash, which is awesome. And then it's just gone, and everything falls down, and then the water rushes
so
back
good.
in. Although something I thought of today, it's kind of like the same thing that like Kevin Smith talks about with the contractors and the independent contractors on the Death Star. It's like, what about all the native people? Like, where was that entire civilization? But then like they said, like a broom to their footprint. They're gone, and so it's just.
So
crazy.
awesome.
But these weren't necessarily benevolent beings. They were to an extent, but they were also very gosh, we could go down a rabbit hole talking about whatever these beings are and their intentions and all that stuff, and then how it pertains to
one quote by
real life accounts of such quote unquote beings, if they exist.
Visitations. But with Oxley's line, he goes, well, actually they're not aliens, they're interdimensional beings. And the one part that is just so cool, which gets into the string theory of all this, is that they're in the space between spaces. So they are not of this world, but they're also not of this plane of reality, this plane of our dimension, which I think is really so cool and metaphysical. That kind of, instead of being, they're from this planet, it makes it a little bit more mysterious, makes it more questioning. But some people don't like that. They like that it's rooted in some people's, faith, or it's rooted in voodoo or whatever you would call it, Temple of Doom. But this is kind of cool because it's not rooted in anything that has been, discussed in an Indiana Jones movie before. It's very, very different. I like that aspect.
I love
at
it
least,
too. Yeah, it's very. It was fresh. It was new. It's a way to again reboot a franchise and bring it back to the forefront.
Yes,
and I thought they did excellent.
They did, and of course the next part is the wedding scene. That's actually really well done. Very high in color, very saturation, very bright. It's a great scene. It's a very.
I love how
scene.
white the entire
to...
church is compared to like all the costumes and things like. So good, so good.
It's so good, very Spielberg, and of course there's one really awesome part where they finally get married. They're walking down the aisle, and then the wind blows the door open, and the hat flies, and then the hat lands right in front of Mutt, and Mutt goes down to pick it up.
He's about to put it on.
He has it in his hand, put it on, and and Indy snatches that thing right out of his hand, puts it on his head, and walks out. That's such a well-crafted scene.
So beautiful.
It's so clever.
It's to say,
so
clever.
Okay,
your time is coming, but not yet, because I still have
not
a little gas
yet.
left in me, buddy. And we got at least, again, one more coming up. So, one thing I will say, I hope, and I know a lot of people, I know Shia doesn't really want to have much to do with this probably now, especially with the backlash and all that. But I do not want them to just gloss over his marriage to Marion, or
I don't think they will.
Mutt, the existence of Mutt.
No.
I'm sorry if you didn't like the
Yeah.
character. Acknowledge his existence.
Yes,
he is
you have to.
like I love Short Round in Temple of Doom. He's a great character. He was not ever mentioned ever again. Mutt is a little bit bigger of a character than Short
Way
Round
bigger.
because it is Indy's son, and he was out of his life for so long. So
They can even do a very subtle reference like they did in The Last Jedi with Luke, where Luke's like, well, you know, Han was Han about
Yeah.
it. You know, they could really say something about, you know, whatever happened to Mutt. They could say, well, Mutt went on his own little crusade, and, you know, not say he died, but, you know, he disappeared.
doing
You
his
never
own
know.
thing.
Mutt might be the
Right,
MacGuffin.
right.
Yeah, Mutt might
they
be the
could
next
pull
the next
one
plot
out on
point.
us, and they've like talked it out with Shia LaBeouf, and like he's going to be in it.
They could have.
And he's going to make you all fall in love with Mutt. So that's all I'm saying.
There
Hashtag
you go.
make Mutt happen. So that doesn't really work so much, but it's getting late over here where I am. So I'm going to start making up hashtags.
Look, here's the deal. Then the movie ends, and it's a very nice bookend, and I'm honestly excited for the next one. But we do have a little bit of a couple of responses from some people on Twitter that we haven't got the chance to go through, and we do have an actual recording from our friend Alex from Star Wars Explained, and I'm gonna get that pulled up right now so everyone can have a chance to listen to it. Any final thoughts on the movie, Jerry, that you want to bring up?
Just give it a second watch. We're going to hear from our friend Michael Condon,
Yes.
too, here in a minute. Wait, did we listen to Michael's thing yet? Okay,
No, we did not.
You can cut that out, or we can just leave it right in there because that's how we roll. But no, we're going to hear from Michael, who was he was kind of a little salty on it at first, but I think this movie deserves a rewatch, and I think you'll find.
Yes.
After having the benefit of a little bit of time between the last time you've seen it, if you haven't seen it since, a decade ago, you might enjoy it more than you think. So, but that's all I gotta say. What about you,
Totally.
Scotty? What do you got to say? Final thoughts?
In regards to this movie, I remember when I was seeing it when I was younger, and I really enjoyed it then. It wasn't until about 14 or 15 when I started hearing that people didn't like this movie on YouTube and stuff. And I was like, why? Why wouldn't anyone like this movie? And to be completely 100% honest with you, I saw it in 2008. I probably saw it maybe one time in between, and I recently rewatched it, yesterday or the day before. And I don't see why people dislike it at all. I don't understand why people hate this movie, and it may be cynical of me to say, but you need to take. I don't know. A bunch of good points are made.
No, I'm just playing.
I know. Well, there's one part that I will say this too. I have never seen this person in our show yet before, but someone named Benjamin L. Akers at Chintzy Beatnik said, at the end of the day, the fourth best Indiana Jones movie is still better to me than most other movies. And I agree with that. That is 100% true.
That was a good sentiment.
And I hold that to my heart too, dude, because that's the exact way I feel about this. Because it's like, I don't care what you say. You can watch this movie and you can really kind of say, well, I loved this part about it, but there's some parts of it that I don't see why anyone would hate, I can understand people disliking The Last Jedi because that was a pretty radical movie. I will say that. And at some points I was like, man, this is intense. People won't like this. But when I watch this movie, I'm like, what? I don't understand what people would hate. That's a strong word.
Very
hate
strong
about this movie.
Well, and my thing too is that don't think that we're watching these and like we're just like yeah we're all right. I have tried to watch this several times over the last decade, and every time because like after my friends were like no it sucks, I would be like well maybe it does because I was the time in my life when I was trying to be a little more critical of film, and every time I watched it I was like. It's like The Last Jedi. I did the same thing with that too. I was like, no, I like this. But then someone would say something. I'd be like, well, maybe you're right. And so I'd go watch it again. I'd be like, no, I still enjoy this. So again, guys, just give it a chance and gosh, just go into it just thinking about go into it looking for what you love about indie and focus on that. It's the same with Star Wars. Find your corner of Star Wars and look for that. But you know what? Why don't we go ahead and hear from our good buddy Alex?
See, Alex's point of view on this, and I'm sure everyone will get this after, it's like, regardless of it being, a movie that some people didn't like, and he had some honest opinions that it wasn't his favorite, but it's still an Indiana Jones movie. So y'all give this a listen. It's some good insight from our friend Alex from Star Wars Explained. So if you haven't yet, you need to go check out his page. I mean, he is like one of the best. He got me into doing this. Like, he was the one that inspired me to start making Star Wars content. And if you haven't listened to him yet, once this is over, definitely go subscribe.
Well, go watch his Indiana
Alex.
Jones little video he did just recently, right? It's the perfect primer, the perfect primer to the Bombadcast episode in Defense of the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But anyway, go ahead, man. Let's listen to Alex.
Hey, this is Alex from Star Wars Explained, and Scotty asked me to just give some off-the-cuff thoughts about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. A lot of people really don't like this movie, and whenever you bring up the 4 Indiana Jones movies, they're like, you mean just 3, right? There's only 3, and yeah, I get it. The movie isn't my favorite Indiana Jones by far. I mean, Indiana Jones as a series is really interesting to me. I love the character, I love the movies, but really only half of them I adore. I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is a perfect movie, and The Last Crusade is a very close second. I love both of them to death. Temple of Doom and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull are fine, but I am honestly one of those people that finds Kingdom of the Crystal Skull to be a little more in line with what I expect from an indie movie. Temple of Doom is just so dark. And I mean, I watch a lot of my movies and I read a lot of my books. If you watch my channel and you see my reviews, I will enthusiastically describe things as fun. I just want my movies to be fun, usually. Obviously, there's a place for something dark and brooding and something that means a lot, that has something to say. Temple of Doom, to me, is just dark and kind of rough to get through. I still think it has its place in Indiana Jones, and I think that you need to mix things up in a franchise for things to stay fresh. But when I walked out of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I was like, yeah, okay, that was fun. It wasn't the best Indiana Jones movie I've ever seen, clearly, but I enjoyed it for the most part. I'll just try to run through the movie from what I remember. It's been a minute since I've seen it, but I remember the opening sequence with Area 51. I thought that was pretty neat, but something that I didn't enjoy as much is that the Indiana Jones movies are always supposed to start with the end of another adventure. Like you're being thrust into just the very final moments of something really exciting, and you don't really know what's going on, but that's fine. This one, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, you start off with the beginning of this adventure, and I don't know, that just kind of put me on some weird footing right away, where I was like, oh, this isn't what I was hoping to see, but it's still a fun beginning, and I really like Indy running around and swinging and messing some things up, but it's still a fun little time. I remember the chase through the college campus on Mutt's motorcycle. I thought that was a really good sequence where Indy gets pulled into a car off of the motorcycle, fights his way through to the other side, and gets back on the motorcycle. I thought that was some great stuff. I really like that little chase. I like that they went to Peru. That's kind of a selfish thing because I've been to Peru. That's one of the few times I've been out of the country, and I got to see some of the stuff that they go to, and he's speaking Quechuan. I'm like, I've talked to people who speak Quechuan, and I mean, I didn't understand them, but I know what that language is. So I enjoyed that they went to Peru. The jungle chase I thought was kind of a mixed bag. I mean, part of it was really fun, but then you have stuff like the, monkeys and Mutt swinging through vines and everything. Something else that kind of popped into my head just now is that you didn't really get I guess most Indiana Jones movies have that like one really kind of gross out moment, whether it's eating monkey brains or someone's face melts or someone ages really fast and turns to dust. I don't think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull really had that. Maybe the ants, I mean, that was kind of gross. And yeah, the way Kate Blanchett's character, can't remember her name, the way that she dies at the end is, I don't know, it wasn't gross, really. It was fitting thematically that she went out because she desired what she wanted so badly. And I mean, that fits very well with the rest of Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. Temple of Doom, yeah, I guess so. Mola Ram also kind of dies because he wants those Sankara stones so badly. But I kind of missed some of those elements that make Indiana Jones what it is to me. But overall, I thought that it was, I guess, a fun time. I certainly don't hate the movie. I'll say that. It's just missing some things. And I will agree that I'm one of those people that think the Crystal Skull was a little out there, especially when, like, it actually does resurrect some aliens, but they're not aliens. They're interdimensional beings. And it was just like, that seems needlessly weird. I think it would have worked a little better if we didn't actually see the aliens and the Crystal Skull was just a MacGuffin, and we didn't get to know everything about its origin, because the Crystal Skull is a real thing, and I don't necessarily think it's any weirder as a MacGuffin than the Lost Ark or the Stones, or, you know, it was a fine jumping off point, and I also appreciate, I guess, that they were trying to do like a 1950s B movie, and aliens were all the rage then. So I see why they went that direction, but it just didn't quite work for me. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It certainly didn't kill my love for the franchise. I don't hate the movie. I think that it got about half right, and half of it I was just like scratching my head at. But, you know, you just move on, and I'm still very excited for Indiana Jones 5 and what it is going to tell, whatever it is. Like, I kind of hope we go back to a more classic biblical MacGuffin. Maybe that's just because I'm a little more familiar with that stuff, but that's what I'm hoping for. And I have high hopes for Indiana Jones 5, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like, it still sits on my shelf along with the other three, and I don't feel shame for that at all. But yeah, that's all I have to say. So thanks, Scotty, for having me on, and enjoy your discussion.
Well, thank you, Alex, for that. I am so glad you can come and, be a part of the Bombadcast for an episode. Hey, maybe in the future we'll have you on. Hopefully, maybe after The Rise of Skywalker comes out or something. Yeah. So
you guys are welcome anytime. By the way. Thank you.
Of course, y'all stay tuned for some more stuff from Alex. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm really enjoying, being a part of the same community as him. It's really cool, and I know Gerry could say the same.
It's amazing.
But yeah, he made some really good points that I actually didn't even think about. How this movie kind of does what all the other movies does in regards to the same tropes. And it might not be the same exact way as other ones, but the MacGuffins are still kind of a relic. It's not that they're anything other than that. And he can, and same with what we said before. It may not be a biblical thing, but it's not that bad of a MacGuffin,
right?
A little bit more.
Well,
alienish.
and I love how he said that it's not that I love how he said that he felt like Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is more of what he expects or sees Indiana Jones as, or expects it to be, than even Temple of Doom was, which was a little dark, and which is probably a controversial opinion for maybe some people, but I can't help but agree with him. Like, I really do think it kind of falls more in line with Raiders and Last Crusade, but it still has it's got a little bit of that Temple of Doom flavor, so it's just kind of a good amalgamation of the franchise.
Yeah, and how he kind of made it seem like, it's still a part of my collection. It is still Indiana Jones to me. For someone that is so big into Star Wars, he can sit back and watch Indiana Joneses too, and enjoy those films. And at no point, and just how Alex is, he's never going to say anything negative and stew on the negativity of anything, which is one thing I've always enjoyed about his channel. And that's how the internet should be. I mean, if you've got something negative to say, stick to your own people. Don't spread that hate. And he mentions how that is still on his shelf, along with Temple of Doom. It's still a part of the saga. It may not be his favorite, and that's okay. It's not his favorite, but it's still definitely a part of the series.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't know. I thought I had something, but it's almost midnight here, so
No, I've got Gerry up a little too late past his
the moons are saying, wait, that's no moon. That's a space station. Okay, well, I should go to... No, here we go. Well, you know what? I'm excited to hear. Again, we were talking about how... Again, Alex, dude, thank you so much for sending that in. We seriously appreciate you contributing to the show. And go check out Star Wars Explained if you're not already doing it. And who am I kidding? If you're listening to this, you definitely are subscribed to Star Wars Explained. But anyway,
of course.
If you're the one person that isn't, though, then go ahead and do it right now. But no, like we were talking about earlier, I'm excited to hear from our good friend Michael Condon here, because we were talking about, if you haven't seen this in a while and you only remember the bad things and you want to say that your favorite part is the credits or things like that, maybe you should give it a rewatch. But let's, why don't we, Scotty, if you're ready for it, why don't we listen to Michael's thoughts on the movie, because he was kind of like feeling a little salty on it, wasn't he?
Yeah. And all right, here's what Michael had to say real quick.
Hello, fellas. This is Michael Condon, and I took a few hours out of my day to watch Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, just because you asked us to. And I have to say, it wasn't as torturous as I remember. In actuality, the movie itself wasn't really that bad, but compared to other Indiana Jones movies, it kind of sucked. I think the big problem that people have with the movie is the entire time we're going to find out about Indiana Jones, the great archaeologist, professor, finding out that there's aliens in the world, and we just find out that it's just interdimensional species. That, I think, is the biggest problem, because we can imagine aliens or creatures from other planets because that's tangible. But when you start talking about interdimensional species and get into string theory, things that are being proven, but we still can't really comprehend, everyone just kind of says, well, the movie was stupid, I don't understand it. Well, they leave out the part that they're stupid, that they can't understand it, just that the movie itself is stupid. You had posted the question on Twitter, what was our favorite part of the movie? And I joked that it was the ending credits, not just the ending. You had put a picture on there of one of the last scenes, or the last scene, where Shia LaBeouf is grabbing the hat to put on, and Harrison Ford grabs it, and it's just kind of not yet kid moments. That was probably the most, I don't know, not inspirational part of the movie, but part of the movie where I was most excited, because I was like, okay, this is how it's going to keep going. But obviously it doesn't really work that way. I don't really have too many hot takes from the movie. Just kind of, well, Indiana Jones in general. First of all, Indiana Jones is like a Bob Ross painting. It's just one happy mistake after another. He's really not that good or that skilled. He just gets lucky in everything that he does. Also, in this movie, and with the other ones, there's always something going on with his balls. He always has something being swung at him, or someone's going to hit him in And then I guess with the reshoots, I don't know if they're reshoots or just on the soundstage, a lot of the stuff looked really fake. Like when they're in the jungle, you can tell that they're not in a jungle, which I would think in a high-budget movie they'd put a little bit more money into. I really like the housing designs and colors and architecture of the 50s, though, when he goes in the beginning of the movie into the atomic bomb testing site. When he breaks old dude's nose and he says, "I told you I was going to break your nose," that was probably the funniest part of the movie. There's about 35, 45 minutes of the movie, which is just nothing. It's just Indiana Jones getting beat up and them going over a waterfall and bad guys, as normal, falling off of cliffs and yelling. But in this one, it wasn't done as well as others. And the mission really didn't seem that important as compared to some of the other movies, especially when you have the last movie, he's going to find the Holy Grail so the Nazis can't rule the world. This one, it's just kind of like, yeah, the Russians, but then they mowed down all the Peruvians, or I guess that's what you call people from Peru, right? Well, that's the 4:20-minute mark of my ramblings, so I guess I've gone on long enough. Have a Bomba day, and may the force be with you.
Michael, man, I'm so happy that you gave it another shot. You know, you were the first one whenever I did that post and I said, be more original than saying the end was your favorite.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, how dare you, give your fans more, credit. The credits was my favorite. And, we kind of, I went back and forth. If you got like a kind of saucy response from the Bombadcast account, that was me. If you got like, John Travolta looking around or the guy, whatever movie that's from where the gif where the guy goes, "Get out." It was all tongue in cheek, all fun and games. So you don't worry, you're all welcome. We all love you. We love you all. But no, it just, by the way, how awesome was it? We all know that this stuff happens, but that was such a great observation about that Indy is always having something come so close to his crotchal region that it's in every movie.
Oh, it's so funny, and I never thought about that, but it does happen frequently.
Yeah.
And Michael, I love your remarks, about having the chance to rewatch it, and you kind of have a little bit of a new light, and I really enjoyed your opinions on the alien part of it, and yeah, maybe a little different, but it's not bad.
Well, and I love that.
Bad.
I love that he was like, yeah, they were doing the interdimensional beings, and we would have probably liked it more if it was just aliens, but
yeah.
But the fact that we're now proving this stuff, but we don't understand it.
Yes, it's so clever.
We're too stupid to understand it, so we think it's bad.
Yes, and
point.
It's a great point, and one thing before we end up signing off this podcast, I do want to get into another thing, Gerry, if you don't mind.
Oh, bring it on, Scotty. What's up, buddy?
Despite this being the most recent release of an indie movie, there has been confirmation that there will be an Indiana Jones 5. All right, Spielberg is working on it. Harrison Ford is working on it. John Williams is back, and David Cup, I don't even know how to say his name, will be returning for Indy 5. It has been confirmed. So something
exciting.
to look forward to.
It's
and
so
the
exciting.
best part is, guess who's doing the rewrites of the script and doing some reworking of the script right now?
Who is
Our friend who happened to write Solo a Star. I almost said make Solo 2 happen a Star Wars story.
Well, I'm sure he would like that to happen as well.
John Kasdan, the son of wait. Is it John Kasdan? Oh,
John Kasdan, good old Larry.
Of Lawrence. Yes, the son of Lawrence Kasdan, who actually wrote Raiders, is doing the rewrites for Indy 5. So that's something you can keep in mind. And one thing that's unfortunate is George is not returning. I think he's way too invested in his museum to be returning right now. And
which is
returning.
really kind of ironic and funny when you're dealing with Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones thing, like, it belongs in a museum.
Oh my goodness, that's such a good point. Oh,
mind blown.
Whoa!
You're welcome.
Did you know that Indiana was actually the name of George's dog.
What?
The one
Who
that-
was the inspiration for Chewbacca?
Yes,
Holy cow,
who
we're
was
getting back into
also-
Star Wars.
Whoa. But look, guys,
It's like
I
6
really
degrees
hope-
of Kevin Bacon in here.
Yes, it's 6 degrees of Jerry's Ewok eyes
Yeah, it
that are
happens.
falling asleep at the moment. But look, here's the deal. We're so glad you joined us in this giant, long podcast, and we had been hyping it up, but we're at the almost 2 minute and 40 second mark. We all 2 hour and 40 minute
If
mark.
you play
but,
this in fast speed, maybe you'll I don't know, just stop it after 240. Who cares? I'm just
look,
kidding.
y'all,
Keep listening.
keep listening, and thank you so much for joining us. We are so happy to have brought you this episode, and our next episode's still in the works as of right now, so just stay tuned. You'll probably enjoy the next one as well, but anything you want to add, Jay, before we do our sign off?
Well, man, not much else, but you can find me at Junkie Cannon, Cannon Junkie at Junkie Cannon, if that makes any sense. Is that clear? Cannon Junkie at Junkie Cannon on Twitter, and then you can find my Cannon Junkie page on YouTube. I haven't posted much there, but you can find me every Tuesday here on the Bombadcast. Scotty, my man, where can they find you, and what are your thoughts?
You can find me. Oh, my final thoughts are: this is a damn good movie. I've really enjoyed it. If you haven't,
It belongs
and
in
you
a
listen-
museum.
And it belongs in a museum. If you have not had the opportunity to rewatch the movie, give it a chance after this podcast is over and give us your feedback. You might still be the same exact way you felt in 2008, but
That's
it's
okay.
aged. And that's okay. It's aged well, and I'm looking forward to everyone's response to this episode. And hopefully, we won't lose any followers. We'll only gain people from this. But if you for some reason don't enjoy this, let us know why. But if you do enjoy it, also let us know why. And my name is Scotty Gerry. It has been an absolute pleasure doing this episode today with my buddy Gerry. And Gerry, there's one thing that this group of lovely listeners should do. And what might that be, Gerry?
Well, guys, you can let us know if you enjoyed this Canon Adjacent, Lucasfilm Adjacent. There is a proper title.
His poor Ewok eyes. I
it
see
happened.
them slowly shutting.
They do actually blink, but it's only when we're sleeping. But no, guys, let us know what you thought about this, and if you'd like us, maybe if you want to suggest a topic for us to talk about on the next edition of this. I don't think this is going to be like a monthly thing. We're probably just going to do this like maybe quarterly or just kind of like whenever.
Yeah,
But whenever we feel like
radically.
talking about something. But if you got suggestions, let us know. But you know what you can do besides all of that? You can stay bombad.
Or you can stay in this dimensional plane.
Stay on this. Do not go towards the tiny little 4-prong fan. Do not. I don't care how cute the aliens look. Do you know if the aliens were cute?
You shall all bomb.